Chris, Gregory, welcome to the podcast. I can't remember what episode. I think this is episode number 9, right?
That sounds right, yeah.
So good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
We have a guest today.
Yes, we do. And as with many things, it's one of our Toastmaster friends.
Yes, exactly. So Gregory, you want to say a couple words, introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Greg.
Nice. Hey, hey,
That's
so
right.
just to let you know, this is a podcast based on talking. So we talk a lot on this podcast, actually. So,
So, Greg,
Well,
you're like a research scientist or something like that, aren't you?
I would just a scientist, not a research scientist. I don't do that much research.
what's
I'm a
it?
scientist in a medical device manufacturing company.
Mm.
So a lot of the science I do is more about demonstrating that whatever product that engineering comes up with works the way it's supposed to work.
Ah, so you're
Yeah.
perfect then. You're a scientist. So this podcast, I don't know if Chris has told you, it's all about critical thinking. Um,
That's what we think.
hmm
That's what we say it is, at least.
yeah, that's what they say it is. Yeah, so that's like pretty awesome. So, all right, well, what are we going to talk about? Normally we just
Well, I want to start by saying
okay.
I don't know why did you reach out to me, Greg? You reached out to me the other day and you said, "Oh, I've been watching the podcasts." And I'm like, "Really?
Yeah.
Wow!" No one's been watching our
Great,
podcast.
you're one of our like 3 viewers that watch it. Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah,
did.
I wait for them to drop on Sundays, and
Yeah.
if I don't see them, then I just keep checking throughout the week until it comes out. Now listen.
I was at the coffee shop and I don't know why, but I did mention that we started this, and this woman was like, "Oh, tell me what it is." So I told her hands-on logos, and she immediately went in there. And someone who randomly called me on the phone from my old company, and I mentioned it to them, and they're one of our subscribers now, one of our 9, I think, subscribers now.
Oh, we
So
have 9 subscribers now?
something like that.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. Last time I looked, we had 2 subscribers. This is
Uh,
how it just grows
Yeah.
organically from the ground up. I guess that's a very good
I
thing.
might be subscribed twice. I'm not sure.
That's okay. No, we don't care.
Well, one of the things I always enjoy when Greg's in any of our Toastmasters meetings is his sense of humor
Yes.
and
Mhm.
his intelligence when he comes across. So
Yes.
Mm.
he delivers his humor in a very matter of fact, straight way. And when he first did it, I wasn't even sure. Am I frozen?
Yeah, you seem like you're frozen.
Yeah.
Wow, I don't know why that is.
And things got really dark too for you, so
Ah, interesting. Well, there it comes back.
there you go.
No, he was saying funny stuff that I couldn't laugh at because he said it with such a straight face. I wasn't sure if he was
Yeah,
being funny.
you're being funny or serious. Yeah, that's
I
awesome.
remember during COVID, you gave a speech about corvids.
Yes, there's a
And we're like,
Corvid crisis. Yeah.
is this a misspelling? And you went on and on. It wasn't until halfway through the speech you told us what corvids are. And what are corvids?
Basically crows.
Oh, crows.
Yeah.
It's a scientific like family name for that crows and magpies and blackbirds and all those things, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Because they're
no, it
very
was
intelligent birds and you really don't want to mess with them.
no.
You don't want to get on their bad
They're
side.
colorblind.
Because they talk. They talk to each
They
other.
can't see. Well, the ones in Japan, I don't know if there's a difference in DNA. The ones in Japan can't see yellow, so farmers will put yellow nets and mesh over their crops, and then the crows can't see it.
Oh my gosh. What, no, wait, let's talk about crows. This is really interesting because I don't know what it's called, but like just the other day we had like hundreds of these small little blackbirds in like our yard. As soon as the snow melted, then they're I don't know, what are they eating? What are they doing out there?
Are they crows?
I don't think they're crows, but they're little blackbirds. I'm not
Are they
sure.
like is it starlings I
Maybe
think?
something like that. Maybe actually.
I learned a weird fact the other day that starlings are the only animal introduced into America from Europe or something like that.
Oh wow. Isn't it?
Yeah.
So what about so Greg, um, how do they talk to each other and why do they talk to each other and what do they talk about?
What did they talk about?
Yeah.
Who knows, man? They but the thing with corvids, they have crows, they have very good memory of faces. So they can recognize faces pretty well. Even for us, I think all crows look alike to me. I mean, I can't. Then again, I've never been up close to one,
Yeah.
but I feel like you've seen one, you've seen them all. I mean, I don't know how other animals see us, but yeah, those crows can recognize faces and they'll remember your face. So if you treat them badly, they'll remember you.
No
Have you
kidding.
seen those YouTube videos? There's a guy who's got a trained crow, and he puts like a walnut in a tube, and he gives him a tool, and then he has to use the tool to get the walnut out. And he shows him how to do it. He says, "Here, boom, right," and then the crow will spend the next half hour trying to get that walnut out. They're really smart birds.
No. So, like when you say really smart, like how, like if we could take in human intelligence at different ages, like where are they, like 2 years old, 20 years old? I mean,
I'd say they're like a baby, like a toddler who's beginning to figure things out. I don't think they have the
Mm.
intellectual capability as far as like you know, communication, all the other things that you associate. But birds can reason things out. You know, even bees are smart. Bees can learn. Bees teach each other how to do things.
no kidding, actually. Wow. I had no idea, actually.
Well, I think crows have the intelligence of at least what's the age where you can bully somebody and then get other kids to bully a
That's gonna be
target.
what, 4 or 5?
Yeah, so I would say they have the age, the intelligence of a 4 or 5 year old. This
Well,
is
they got the they got the meanness of a 4 or 5 year old, maybe.
there's
Wow.
that famous study. I don't know if it was debunked or not, but they had different crows, and they would if I remember correctly, they basically just piss them off, piss off some crows. But they would uh, then they would release them, and they would remember the faces, and it was becoming a problem because the crows would remember who the um, I would want to say scientist, but probably some technician working for the scientist or an undergrad student. They would remember them and they would harass that person throughout the campus. And then apparently, because these crows are tagged too, there were other crows that were not tagged that were also harassing these students and recognizing them because it turns out they can they can tell other crows
They
which
brought their friend.
person, yeah, who's a jerk. The
So
person's a jerk. So they redid the study. They did things like they had the researchers wear masks to protect them. And they would give the masks to different people, and yeah, they would recognize the masks. Although I think if they had the masks upside down, it didn't work so well. So I don't know if they're, I guess they can only recognize faces in a certain orientation, I guess. I don't know.
well, faces
But
upside down screws up even our ability to recognize.
does it?
Yeah, but haven't you seen
Hmm.
that thing where you turn the face upside down, but you turn the eyes and the mouth right side up? Yeah, so just switch it over, and then you can
Uh,
recognize the person. We can recognize the person when the eyes and the mouth are right side up, even when the face is upside down. But if the face is
mhm.
upside down, we don't tend to recognize people.
Oh, wow.
I remember there was
Interesting.
a talk show in Japan that they would get these celebrities to come on and they interview them. But what they would do is they get people to do handstands and have their faces upside down, so have gravity would begin to pull on their face, and they take pictures of them and compare them to them right side up, and gravity does some awful things to your face.
Uh, yeah, gravity. I hate gravity.
Damn gravity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a friend, and he had this experience. I don't know. This must have been like 15 years ago. There was a crow that was injured on his lawn, and he took the crow into his house and just nursed it back to health. Um, just kind of took care of it, gave it food, and then when he was good, just let the crow go. And every once in a while, that same crow comes back to his house and leaves stuff on his porch.
Oh my gosh.
Just like
Oh,
random
like
things, like chip wrappers,
it's like
pieces
a
of
cat.
branches and stuff, and just the most random things.
Yeah, I mean cats bring dead animals, right? So.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wonder if that means the crows in my neighborhood like me because I find weird stuff in the backyard that's left there by by birds. I thought they hated me, but maybe they like me.
Wow. I don't know. That's so interesting. The
Are you
relation.
sure it's not just one of the neighbor kids? I don't know.
Yeah, just
Because
tossing
I
stuff
remember
over.
when I was a kid, me and my cousins, oh, it's terrible. We used to like throw things over the property line into other neighbors' backyards and stuff. It's terrible.
But did you grow up here in Orange County?
LA County,
Mm.
yeah. Grew up in Long Beach area, Lakewood. Yeah, Lakewood.
So, do we have any specific things we want to talk about?
Um,
As I mentioned, I've got random notes on random
well,
facts here.
that's kind of interesting. No, I'm gonna let you do most of the leading because I'm getting over a cold. And like I said, I took some drugs
Oh
last
no.
night, and I'm still in this drug-induced coma. I just passed out. It's a legal drug. It was called NyQuil. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that stuff.
Oh, I love NyQuil.
Oh my. I
They
haven't
make
taken
a
that
they
kind
make
of.
a non-alcoholic version for people who actually like the flavor and don't want to go to sleep with the alcohol.
All I know is, man, I took that stuff and it is like about half an hour I was out, and I think I was out for like 10 hours, and I'm still halfway out. So
Yeah, I wonder if a shot of whiskey would have given you the same impact.
I don't know. I don't Let me tell you, I can't believe that stuff is like legal to buy over the counter though. That should be a controlled substance, man. And and I took a small dose too. It's like normal you fill the line. Well, I took there's two lines, one for kids and one for adults. I took like right in between. And whoa. So
Were you
anyway,
having a have you had was it the flu this week or do you know what it was?
man, I don't know what I have or had. Something a cold, COVID, flu. I don't know what the difference is between any of that sort of stuff, actually. I know I have a cough. I can't think. I'm kind of dizzy. I just want to sleep all the time, whatever. I hear it's going around though.
The
You said,
flu's going around all over the place. A third of my daughter's English class was out last week, so
oh, you're kidding me. So it's
and
maybe,
she was out this week. She caught it. She got sick on Saturday and didn't recover to back to school till Wednesday. So
oh my gosh, wow, that's kind of crazy. How about you, Greg? You get any sickness this year, or you managed to bypass it?
What is it? It's the 1st of February?
Oh my gosh, first
Yeah.
of February, yes.
I've been sick 3 times since the beginning of the year.
Oh my gosh. Well, at least you got over it quick. You got
Yeah.
colds or different things, or
Well, I came into the year with something. I think it was a cold, and then one of my daughters got I don't know if it was I think it was a flu. I think she got a flu because I got it too, but then I mean it wasn't that bad. Like it was um very easy to get over.
yeah.
And then my wife got sick, and I think she definitely got the flu. Um, and then I got what she got.
Why is it?
So
Why is this going around so much? Is this just that we're not socially isolating anymore during the COVID days? That now the
well, the
flu?
flu's always been a problem, right? I mean, a
yeah,
lot of people die from the flu even on a regular year. I thought,
Yeah, I guess so, or whatever. Yeah.
well
and
this is the time. This is the time that it happened. If
Why?
you
Spanish
look
flu.
at the death curve for for the flu, it's the same time every year.
Like our January time frame?
Yeah.
Why is
So
that?
people usually get it around December, January, and then they're dropping off and dying come going into February.
Yep. And depending on whether you believe the flu vaccine's any good or not, I mean, my daughter had a flu vaccine and she got the flu, so I think I get the flu as often with vaccines as without. So
Oh, yeah. Well, I think don't they kind of guess though? They're like, okay, we think, and then we sort of put all this
I
stuff.
think they have to guess like what 2 years ahead of time to figure when this happens.
Yeah.
And so
Oh,
some years it'll be 90% effective, and some years it'll be like 50% effective.
is there any way to test that, Greg? How would we test that if it's actually works or not, you know?
If it worked or not.
Yeah, like how do you know if it would be as effective? Is there a way to like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Because normally in a normal, if you want to set up a test, you say, okay, half the people, you're not going to get this thing, and the other half are going to get it, and then based on the outcome, we can tell whether it actually was helpful or not, whatever the change was made. Do they have any sort of test like that, or do they?
Yeah, they do that all the time. It's just I guess it gets complicated when I mean the best way to do it is you purposely infect them. So you guarantee that they get it so you can see what the results are. Right? The
Oh,
problem there is that
yeah.
I guess that's
Hey, come here, come
unethical.
here. I got a little a little shot to
Yeah.
give you.
It's like
Um
they give you a flu vaccine and the flu simultaneously in this shot. Yeah.
Did it work? Let's see.
My gosh. I mean,
yeah,
that's
but
wow.
yeah, I guess the way they just do it is with whatever real life data comes out. And
Hmm.
there you're limited by which organizations actually keep track of that stuff, when they're willing to give that information out.
Well, they need to
I
figure out
I guess it's
which strain of flu it is too, right? I mean, so they would have to test, do you have the flu? What strain is it? Because then they
Mhm.
know, oh, this vaccine was actually not built for that strain of flu, right? And so if
right.
they guess wrong that year, then you've got the wrong version of flu you're working
Yeah.
towards.
Well, how many
So the
strains of
flu,
flu are there? Sorry, Greg.
well,
Go
there are a
ahead.
lot. There are a lot of strains. The flu vaccine has three strains
Uh-huh.
in them, I think. Yeah, it's three. So they have to pick three strains. But then there's also different ways to and there are a lot of variants in the strains as well. So I think um depending on who you're getting your flu vaccine from, you still have the three strains because that's agreed upon by, I don't know, whoever's in charge. But the actual makers of the vaccine, they might still have some variants on that strain, so they're not exactly identical. And then also their method of making the vaccine might be different too. Like, I don't know, the way that they store, and it depends on this is all about manufacturing the vaccine. So like, how are these vaccines being stored? How are they being shipped? So those affect, I guess, the cocktail, the mix, right?
Hmm.
So because when you take the vaccine, it's not just a vaccine. You also the vaccine has to be in something, right? Is this a vaccine that you have to keep refrigerated all the time, or is this one that you can freeze and then you thaw it out later? So it'll have different components in it, and that can affect the effectiveness too. So
Oh, so this is complicated then.
I remember there was a time when people, when they say if you're like allergic to eggs, you shouldn't get these vaccines because I guess the material that the base that they put the vaccine in was made from eggs or something like that. There's different,
Hmm.
who knows what they're making stuff out of, you
Wow.
know. Maybe they need to start advertising gluten-free vaccines.
hey, yeah,
Gluten-free, low carb.
Low carb. That's kind of crazy. So then how many people get the vaccine every year? I mean, I know my doctor tells me you should always get it, but I typically never do actually. I mean, as a general, I'm trying to avoid like chemicals put in my body, but I don't know. Maybe I made a mistake.
I never got flu vaccines before my daughter was born, but when she was small, we've vaccinated pretty much everything to make sure she didn't get sick.
Yeah.
And in general, I got in the habit, so I've been getting flu vaccines for 13 years now.
Oh, gotcha. So I wonder if that's maybe why you don't get it then, maybe. That's interesting.
Well, I rarely get sick. I Most of my sickness is tummy stuff, right? I'll eat something that
Yeah.
upsets my stomach. I do have hay fever and that sort of thing, but generally, you know,
Well, is that because you're taking the vaccines, do you think? Or
I don't know if any of it matters. I think it's all in my mindset.
so, okay, since this is a podcast on like logic and And Greg, you're a scientist. I mean, how would we set up a test? I mean, how do we answer those? Because it sounds like you're just whatever you want to get a vaccine. It's just like a randomness, right? Oh, take it, maybe don't. I mean, I don't know actually. And how much mindset's involved in that? Do you think there's any truth to that, or how much truth is?
Mindset
Yeah.
in vaccines?
No, and not getting sick. Because Chris says, I just my mindset. I decided not to get sick, so I don't get sick.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's like belief effects.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, even with most, I don't want to say most. I don't know about most, but um, per, drugs in general that treat ailments,
Yeah.
they apparently they're more effective in countries where they're better advertised. So that's kind of
You believe
interesting.
if you believe it'll work, it'll work.
Yeah, I mean, if the advertising is good enough and very convincing, then the effectiveness does actually go up a little bit
What's a
overall
little bit?
for
Well,
So
people.
we should be advertising heavily for anything we want people to do.
we do. That's the whole essence of our.
So
Yeah.
the question then is how much of what we get as a result is based upon the belief because of the advertising?
Well, see, it's because we always end up talking about faith. Maybe is that what it always comes back to? Is faith? It always comes back to faith somehow, actually.
What you believe, right?
Yeah, what you believe, faith.
Mhm.
What you perceive and what you believe. Oh, I like that.
My gosh, that is crazy, actually. Which means then, I mean, does this come back then that maybe logic and critical thinking is not important at all? It's just what you believe?
I
Or is
think
logic and critical thinking just a belief system?
logic and critical thinking. Well, maybe we'll take a step back.
Okay,
I think everyone applies some level of logic and critical thinking in their life.
okay.
Everyone does. Now, the level and your ability is going to vary depending on the tools you've learned, your background, your education. So I think maybe everyone actually does do some level of critical thinking. It's just that someone who's uneducated doesn't know how to apply more logic and critical thinking to what they're doing. So that means that everything is about what you believe, and what you believe comes through that filter of critical thinking. And those who've got a developed version are able to pull emotion out, to defend things better logically. I'm wondering if there's a if what we're going for is not just giving you critical thinking, but building your critical thinking muscle.
Yeah.
So if we assume that everyone has the ability to critical think, and everyone does to some extent, then the only question here is calling it out and working that muscle.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think in some level, people would rename that to just common sense, right?
Well, that's why I actually like calling it common sense, because to me, common sense is a mixture of things. It's a certain level of base knowledge
Yeah.
so that you know when things don't sound right. When you hear something that just doesn't sound right, you should be you should be thinking about that and wondering about it, and then being able to get building the skills and the baseline of questions to ask. When you start asking questions about this, and wondering, and then you start figuring out how to answer those questions. And if you have enough base knowledge, you can guess at a lot of things and not have to go Google it and research it. But if
Yeah.
you don't know, then you can always go Google it and research it. And then you've got to figure out how to filter through what comes out of Google and make sure that it makes sense, right? Because half that crap might not be real anyways. And
Hmm.
then you take all that together and you try to piece together a view that takes into account what you perceived, what you think after research and thinking is real, is true, and put it together with what you observe or what you've heard, and then try to put together a picture that goes, I think this is the way the world is, and therefore that's what I believe.
That's so interesting. I know, I was just thinking I'm gonna take this to a ridiculous thing, like, but I think this could be true. This could be maybe more true than we give it credit for. So I like taking gun classes now that I'm in Arkansas. And so I take it from these special forces guys. And so we were talking about ballistics and what it does to your body. And but these guys are saying that when in combat, there were people that were so intent on killing them, they would literally have to shoot them like 15 to 20 times because the guy was too dumb to know that he was supposed to die from being shot. And there's other cases where somebody just gets hit like in the arm and they just fall down and die. And I'm
Don't you remember, like in the 70s, was it PCP or one of those angel dust, one of those drugs that people would get on, and the police would have to plug them full of so many bullets to put them down because they were so hyped you could even two or three bullets wouldn't take them down.
yeah, yeah, which is like crazy. Just crazy, man.
But that it shows the power of your mind, right? I mean,
Mind. Oh my
to
God.
some extent, you can overcome a huge amount of physical damage to your body. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to live through it, but
No, no, no. You're dead. But I mean, still though, the idea in this case is you don't really care if the person dies. You just want to stop them from trying to kill you is the whole thing, right? So
yeah.
they have to just shoot them like 20 times. It's crazy, man. Maybe this whole faith belief thing is way more important than we're giving it credit for.
So if we go back to the idea, we talked about this, right? The people say my truth,
Yeah, my truth. Yeah.
which is some as soon as someone says that, I'm looking for ways to poke holes in it because
Yeah.
I like no,
Why shoot them?
there's a generic truth, and then there's your perception of that of that. You filter it through whatever you want. So my truth is just BS to say I don't want to listen to the facts. I don't want to listen to information. I just want to say what I want to say. Is the way I hear. It's what I hear when someone says my truth.
Oh,
But it occurred to me, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about the power of curiosity and
yeah.
why people who are more curious tend to be, I don't want to say less emotional, but less impacted by kind of or better critical thinking, I guess is what I'm getting at. And it occurred to me, I was thinking of phrases that use the word curiosity, and curiosity killed the cat came to mind.
Yeah.
And I thought, what a horrible idea that curiosity is going to get you killed. I believe that curiosity is a critical, important skill for all of us to have, and a desire and something to drive us. And yet, curiosity killed the cat. Was that done by some authoritarian group that wanted to keep people down?
No, no, no,
Kill the
no. So
cat.
I've got three cats. So I understand this whole thing
Oh,
actually.
yeah.
So cats are incredibly curious and they go into a lot of places they shouldn't go. And I've never seen my cats get killed by any sort of curious thing, but a lot of times they escape stuff that they should be mortally wounded and somehow they just I don't know, man. They I guess cats got 9 lives, right? So I suppose so.
Yeah, so but I just the idea that curiosity killed the cat to me is like a way to teach your kids don't be curious, shut up, don't research, don't question, don't ask, give into authority. That's what suddenly I started to think about that phrase as something very negative as opposed to
Oh, I
the way
see.
it's
Yeah.
generally used.
Well, maybe if you have multiple lives, it's okay to be curious, right?
The cats have 9 lives, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
so they can ask 8 questions.
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Well, no, they
Maybe
actually
that's
ask, they ask
you
nine
get 8 questions before I shut you down.
So really what it means is you have 8 chances before you have to get it right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Maybe that's the
Or
new rule.
maybe
You have to do things 8 times.
so in in a lot of religious religions, there's this concept of rebirth,
Mm-hmm.
dying and being reborn. So maybe that idiom is a metaphor for how we should be living our lives, and that we need to get curious about life and explore things, and then we need to die and be reborn. And the eighth time we do it is when we reach our true catness and the cat that
There's
we were always meant to be,
a
right?
there's a Japanese phrase that says "fall down 7 times, stand up 8."
Mm. Interesting.
Right? It means always get up. Right? When you fall off a horse, you get back on. All those types of phrases. But was there a magic thing about 8? It's the lucky number in China, right?
Is it? I don't know.
Yeah, 8's a lucky number in China. That's why kids weddings are done on August 8th. Babies that are born on the 8th are considered lucky.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Oh, 8 is the lucky number in China.
Oh, Why do you think that is? Is that just a cultural thing, or do you think there's actually some data to
I
back
think
it
there's
up?
some historical reason. Like, well, the number four in Japan and China is bad luck. It means death because the pronunciation, I think, is close to the pronunciation for the word death.
But how do you get to eight then? Because that's two times four.
I don't know where because eight's not a Japanese thing; it's a Chinese thing. So I don't know.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
Maybe it's related to music. Because if you have like a typical song in 4/4
Yeah.
and you have four beats, it feels unresolved. But if you add another four to give it eight, so you
Yeah.
have like two bars, then it feels like, okay, you
Are we
finished
going
it.
to start getting into like 12 bars and 18, 16 bar solos?
Do you think that's just because we're trained to hear that, or do you think it's something just physically like built into our DNA? That's how we respond to stuff.
So that was an interesting thing.
Mhm.
There was a ukulele player who I watched once, and he would show us how, 300 years ago, you play music, and these were the chords. These were the notes that made up a
Yeah.
chord. And then he'd say, okay, and then 100 years later, they started getting dissonance, and you started adding all these different notes that didn't really fit, but and they didn't quite sound right. But after you heard them for a while, you got used to it.
Yeah.
And he said, now there's only one combination of notes that you can't play together in a scale, and that's like I think the first and the fourth, the first note and the fourth note. Because 1 3 5 is a common chord,
Yeah.
but
Right.
1 and 4 does not sound good. It's the only combination of notes that we can't handle in music today because it still doesn't sound right.
Hmm.
So our understanding does change. Our acceptance does change over time.
Yeah. That makes sense. That totally makes sense. You know, as I was watching this AC/DC video the other day, it was being critiqued by this woman, and these guys were playing it, and they showed the audience, and there was like I don't know how many people, hundreds of thousands of people, maybe not, I don't know, I have no idea, but a lot of people. And it's like you're watching these people were literally drugged. I mean, this music, these set of musical notes were like literally drugging these people into an altered state. It was crazy watching it.
Um, so could that have a could they be training themselves to go into like a certain biochemical reaction? Because smells will trigger memories,
Yeah,
songs will trigger memories. I'm wondering if you can actually get into like a what's the happiness
of course. No, not cortisol.
not
The other
cortisol.
dopamine, right? Dopamine.
Well, yeah. So the dopamine or the whatever the long term one.
There's a bunch of them. Yeah.
Yeah, the could those be triggered by music? They've triggered them. They've conditioned themselves to take that joy that hit off of that because they
Well,
listen to the music at home and they do whatever else at home.
well, very possibly, actually. What if this is the whole structure of the universe, literally? Because the Bible talks about saying that God literally spoke the universe into existence. I mean, what if this is just embedded into the fabric of reality, whatever that means?
You're getting at what the words themselves.
Yes, let me tell you something. In marketing, words are powerful. I mean, if you are a great speech, right? If you can string the right words together, you can emotionally affect people in a deep way.
I actually think using less words but using the right words is much more impactful than using a lot of words,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because in the English language we have so many words that have nuance to them.
yes,
The idea that well, we would say like cold water. Water is a thing, and then you would use cold to identify it.
yeah,
Some languages would actually use a new word that meant cold
yeah,
water,
yeah,
right?
right.
So all languages develop differently, but we have, you know, if you think of the word to kill,
Yeah,
right? Killing just says killing, but if you murder someone, that's one thing. If you slaughter someone, that's one thing. If you all these different words have a different nuance to them
yeah,
that when you use them people get a feeling or an emotion or a mental picture in their mind that a mental picture is in your mind of that.
yeah. And it affects people. Yeah. That's not crazy. This is super complicated. Yeah. Yes, I think, now that I'm rethinking this thing, because originally, Greg, my premise was that logic is the framework on which truth is built upon. And I'm rethinking that. I think that's partially true, but not exclusively 100% true in this case. There's a lot of stuff that happens, I think.
Well, I started to try to think of a critical thinking framework,
Yeah,
or at least kind of a way to think that. And I really genuinely wanted 3 steps, so I could have a 3-letter acronym.
yeah,
But I found that 3-letter acronyms were too limiting, so I went with a 5-letter acronym. So I
yeah,
have a 5-step, and the first step is that it's a self-awareness step. You go, what am I feeling? Now, what am I feeling? What am I thinking?
yeah,
And the next step is to examine that, right? And then to examine, do I think this is true? This thing that's making me think or feel this way.
yeah,
Does it sound true? Does it feel true? Does it sound, whatever. And then think through. So this is your research piece. Analyze and examine and say, is it possible that the information I have to make this happen is real or not? Is it possible that another way could happen to make this? That this incredibly crazy conditions we're in today, could we have arrived at it without someone dropping the ball, someone actually following the rules, and we still got to this crazy place today,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And then to recognize of all, you come up with a bunch of different explanations and order rank them as to most likely. The most likely scenario is someone just dropped the ball,
yeah,
right? The less likely scenario is someone purposely did something bad,
yeah,
right? So you come up with like 2 or 3 scenarios and you rank them, give them and this is a skill too, right? Learning probability. What's the probability of this being over that?
yeah,
And then the last thing is kind of re-examine and see if your perspective has changed, right? But that first one, that assessment was to get your mind out of the emotion
yeah,
and to go back into the logic, which I do think the logic is critical. Let me share. So I plugged those 5 ideas into ChatGPT,
mm-hmm,
and I said, give me a 5-letter acronym, and it gave me some bad ones, and then it gave me this one, Spark, which I kind of liked. I don't know if you can see.
I can see.
Yeah. So self-reflect, probe for the truth, analyze possible causes, recognize the most likely explanation, and then keep an open mind. But the idea was to give you something to step through to, at the end of that, you're calm, you've thought it through, and you've got a piece of information about yourself to build into your own character.
That's so interesting. I gotta spend time doing this actually.
So I don't think this is a final on this, but this is just something that I wanted us to start with something to think through, because it would be nice to give people tools. I think ultimately, and this is something I think you and I, Scott, have talked about, there is just way too much information out there, right? We're drowning in information, we're drowning in information and we're starving for wisdom, I think is the quote I heard.
Yeah,
How do we refine down to wisdom? Well, you can be your own filter with tools like this. That's one thing to do. The other thing I'd like us to concentrate on is how to identify trustworthy sources to do this for us. Because we don't have the ability to go through every piece of data that's coming out in the world. So if you can find someone on YouTube, someone on social media, someone on regular media, whatever it is, or a friend, it doesn't matter here, someone at work who you understand their thought process, you understand how they go through something like this on their own. And then when they come out with something from all the information they've processed, you can trust that information and incorporate that into your thinking as well.
yeah, yeah,
Right? 'Cause people do that, but they don't. Sorry, they bring in the other people's opinions, but they don't do any of the background vetting, right? So when you hear someone just accept what a politician says, or accept what a doctor says, or a scientist says, without any way to verify that person is someone you should respect, that's the problem we run across.
yeah.
So being able to do that, I think those are skills you're going to have in the future, and maybe even finding a way to use AI to do that for you. Because right now AI screws up a lot of stuff when you try to ask it questions.
Well, this is really good, yeah, because this is like a framework. I'm gonna have to give some careful thought to your framework here. That's kind of cool. And then I'm gonna attack it and see how it holds up, right?
Yeah, no, I think you should. The main thing, though, I think, is that self-reflection and then that analysis of what you know are critical pieces of that. Because when I hear something, I always try to step through. All right, so the news told me this. Do I believe that? Do I accept that?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I accept that? Right? Um, oh, I was going to tell you last week. I forgot. I was watching some of the coverage of the fires here in California, and
Are
we had
those
all. What was that?
are those out now? Are they? Is that done or?
Well, we keep getting new small ones, but those ones are out now. It's all recovery, but we had all these reporters from other parts of the country coming here and reporting on on the local news. So, like people out of DC, people out of San Francisco, and I realized our local reporters aren't very good because these other reporters, they were doing things like they were actually talking about facts and information. They were walking us through things, and they weren't asking, or they weren't just asking, "How do you feel?" Which is what all the reporters here only say. How did that make you feel? What do you think about this horrible thing that happened? I mean, what do you? I would love someone just to say it's the most wonderful thing to happen in my life. I love the fact that my house burned down.
Yeah.
I mean, just to give them some dissonance in their stupid questions.
Yeah. Well, that's just, you got to realize these people are not journalists. They're paid actors, right? That their company supports a thing and you go find that thing actually.
Well,
So,
and that's unfortunately what news has become, right? Because it's news is entertainment. It's all entertainment anymore.
all entertainment. Yeah. And it's for profit entertainment.
I did want us to kind of go through a thought exercise, if you
Awesome.
know. Um, it,
Wait, before we do this, Greg, what are you drinking there? Sorry to interrupt you.
I'm drinking an energy drink.
Oh, nice. Okay.
that's
Cool.
what happens when you have little kids, huh?
It's your boy,
Oh,
Jocko.
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 Jocko. Does that actually work? Is it good?
Um,
Is any energy drink
it's
good?
Well, then we
I
have to
would
define
actually
good.
say it's milder
Oh, okay.
than other energy drinks, which is a big plus because a lot of a lot of other energy drinks are they give you a lot of energy, but they give you like a lot of other stuff too that you don't really want.
Sugar, taurine, guanine, all those
I'm
different
I'm
things.
just talking about the way it makes you feel or gives
Oh,
you, yeah. I
That's how
mean,
it feels. Man,
it's not
wouldn't
giving
it be
you
awesome?
wings, huh?
We could invent the
no,
perfect
I don't
drug.
want wings.
Awesome. Anyway, sorry to interrupt, Chris. My brain's not working very well because I'm in, what do they call it? Like when you take drugs and then the next morning you're like
Brain fog? Oh,
brain fog.
oh, you don't know. You've got a hangover.
I
I got a
that's
NyQuil hangover right now.
I call that Tuesday.
What, Monday was that bad? You had
Yeah.
Oh my, that's crazy.
it's like happy hour on Monday after work.
Mm.
Taco Tuesday. Maybe it's a Taco Tuesday, right? Anyway, no. What I was trying to do was I wanted to kind of walk through kind of a thought exercise
Awesome.
because one of the things to me that always people always criticize is second order and third order effects of an action.
Yes.
So it's like you will criticize a politician or for pushing a particular law or decision or what it doesn't matter, or a boss or whatever, and it's not because that usually the first order effects are wrong. It's usually the second order, the third order, whatever effects that are wrong, and those are the ones that you say, see, you should have thought of this and you should have thought of that. And, you know, is there a perfect solution that would give you everything you want? Probably not. But it does occur to me that being able to think through second order and third order impact, and then having the ability to talk about it, to address it, is an important thing.
Yeah.
So the first thing that came to my mind was Trump and his tariffs because they were talking about that this morning on the news. But I don't know if you have another thing you'd want to walk through. But I just thought it'd be interesting to take an idea, see what the impact is, and then talk about what follow-on impacts might be.
Oh, yeah, that would be fun, except I have no economical. I mean, I'm a finance major, but I have no idea about tariffs and how they work. So it would
But
be,
the point is, I think it would be interesting for us being critical thinkers to think through what we think the impact might be. Because a lot of people aren't going to have the skills or the knowledge to be able to say, "Oh yeah, I'm an economist. I know how things are going to work." Right? I don't necessarily trust the economists because they've got
agendas.
other dogma they've learned over the years.
But okay, so basically what we're saying then Hang on, let me just rephrase because I think I want to go after before we get there, I want to go after your premise.
Okay.
So is it even possible to think through critically when you don't know anything about what you're talking about?
You have to build up a minimum level of understanding of what you're talking about. I mean, if you just say tariffs and people go, that's a tax, that's not enough to have a conversation on.
Yeah.
We have to start to what is a tariff, who is it impacting. You need to go be able to walk through, you know, just like if you want to sell something, you know, you need to know who your audience is. Whatever you're talking about, you need to know the impact, who's being impacted by it, what the impacts are, right? And usually what ends up happening is you stop after that first discussion. And I say, well, what happens next?
Yeah.
Just like we talk about trying to get to the main why of a situation, you ask why 5 times. Maybe you should be asking what happens next, what happens next, what happens next 5 times to figure
So,
out.
yeah, so in my mind, what I'm thinking right now, the first thing that came out of my mind was this is reverse root cause analysis, it sounds like. Like remember when you try to solve,
Yeah. No, that makes sense, right? It's like taking this instead of going back to the source, you're moving the story forward.
I think, yeah. Because
Yeah.
normally root cause analysis, right? Let's just make sure everybody understands this is like instead of chasing all the symptoms and all these second, third, fourth, fifth things, you're trying to figure out like what is the one thing
Yeah.
that's causing all of it, right?
To me, that's a huge part of why projects don't get implemented well, companies don't get stuff done well. It's because when you go to the root reason why these actions are occurring, people don't know. Like if a company says, "Oh, our sales are down," we're gonna, what do we do? We're gonna go hire a bunch of salesmen to sell more, and they're like,
Yeah,
"Well, why were sales down? If the sales
yeah,
were down because the product was crap, more
yeah,
salesmen isn't going to have that much of an impact. If the
yeah.
sales they're down because the quality assurance wasn't good, the product that was coming out of our Chinese factories was impacted because the materials that came out of Thailand were what you go back and you figure out what the reason is, and then you may find out the thing you're working on, the project you're working on to fix some idea is not fixing the problem because you haven't identified the root problem. And
Well,
not
that's
only
yeah.
is there a root problem, there's a purpose issue too. Why is that important? Why
So
do we care about profits? And I think understanding, or why do we want to sell more? Because we want more profits. Why do we want more profits? That's the 5 whys, right? We want to help people's lives and make them better. That's why we want to sell our product. That's different than I just want to make money.
so then maybe this line of reasoning isn't even necessary then. Because because ultimately, so we talk about what's the effect of tariffs are going to have, right? Trump's tariffs or whatever. But maybe that's not the right question. Maybe the right question is what problem is he trying to
Yeah.
solve?
So why does he want tariffs?
Yeah, because he wants tariffs because he believes that other people are
Well,
taking advantage of the
that's
United States.
that's if you're trying to find a solution and you're not married to the idea that tariffs are what you're doing. If you're trying to figure out what is the impact of this particular proposed solution, that's a different aspect, right? So if you want the best solution, you're right. We need to go to why does he want tariffs? But
Well,
if the idea here is like let's judge how good of selection this is or how good a path this is,
yeah, but
that
okay, yeah, that's fair enough. But you got to be careful. You got to think, is Trump trying to put tariffs on because he wants a particular outcome? I don't think so. I think what he's really trying to do is he's just doing the art of the deal stuff. He's trying to do this
but
bombastic.
then why is he doing that then? There's an outcome he wants.
Oh, because he wants to. This is my opinion. He wants to restructure the world order.
Okay, that was not one of the ones reasons that I had in my mind of what he's trying to do. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's go. So now let's go. We're going to root, right? We're going to the why at this point. Why does he want tariffs? You say he wants to restructure the world order. What do you mean by that? And then why does he want to do that?
Well, I mean, ultimately, I think with Trump. Okay, here's the thing with Trump. I don't think you need to think too much about Trump because pretty much what he says is what he's trying to do, right? In my mind.
That's what. That's the what. That's not the why.
The what? Oh, because he wants to make America great again. That's his
So
state. He
so
get a hat.
so when you say restructure the world order, like be more specific. What is the restructured world order he wants?
Well, okay, so first of all, you got to understand that I have no idea what I'm talking about. So
I get it. I
let's
get
just
it. But
start there,
it
right?
doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. This is the process of trying to figure out a why. So you're building a story as to why and a how, a what and a how, based upon the information you've got, and you've got whatever's in your head and whatever you hear in the news.
And whatever I hear on the news, right? So I pretty much watch both sides equally. I watch MSNBC and Fox News equally, but I'm trying not to do that because it's corrupting my mind. So
I don't watch either of those. Okay.
you're way smarter than I am, actually. I'll tell you that much because it's all a bunch of nonsense. So, anyways, what was the question again?
So, what is it he's trying to do? Okay, so how he's doing it is by saying we're going to tariff everyone.
Yeah,
The what he's trying to do, you say he wants to reorder the world.
yeah,
So what do you mean? Just make America top dog and that's it, or what do
yeah.
you
I
think?
think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. I don't think
Okay,
there's.
so he wants to make America top dog, and there's a lot of stuff in there that is problematic, but I won't get into that. And then so why?
Oh okay. That gives some other reasons too. One is he probably wants to make way more money, right? And he wants to leave.
Personally or for the country?
For him personally, of course, like all
Okay.
politicians want to do that, right? He probably wants to make more. He wants more power. He wants to leave a legacy. I'm sure there's a bunch of both logical reasons and emotional reasons why he's doing.
So there's multiple things in there, right? So like he wants America to be top dog to get rich, right? To have power. In fact, one of the reasons why he's probably going straight to this idea of threatening tariffs is to exert power.
Mm.
And if it works, he then gets a tick mark saying, yes, I exerted power and I got people to do what I wanted. It makes him seem stronger. Right?
And one more thing, actually, if I can throw one more thing in before we start, actually, is so I've heard him say, and many people believe this, that he's on a mission from God, and that
Yes.
God spared him from getting killed so he could do this, right?
So, do you believe that?
I believe it's a possibility. I don't know how much
I mean, if anything, an assassination attempt would be something that would prompt that kind of a change in your thinking. I would assume. I kind of think it's BS, but I don't know. I can't be sure.
well that but here's the thing, do you believe in if you don't believe in God, then of course it has to be by default BS, right? But if you believe in God and you've gone through the Bible, you realize that God does raise
No, no,
up.
no, 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 no. You're making a fallacy in your statement there. You're saying that if I don't believe in God, then he's obviously wrong. And I'm like, no, no, this has nothing to do
No,
with
no,
my
no,
belief in
sorry,
God.
sorry, sorry, sorry.
This has nothing to do with my belief in God. Do I believe that he thinks that he's on a mission from God, or do I believe that he's BSing us? That's
Oh,
it
oh.
has nothing to do with whether or not I believe in God.
Yeah, yeah, but no, no, it does in one sense, right? Because if you don't believe in God, then the thought that God has spared his life is completely not true.
I'm not even talking about whether or not God spared his life. I'm not saying is it true. I'm saying does he believe it?
Oh, well, of course he
That's a
believes.
different.
Oh,
This
no,
is.
that's a very different
I was
question.
watching YouTube the other day, and
Yeah.
this video came up where someone said, "Do you believe in God? Do you not believe in God? Or do you not know?" And it was one of those one of the guys who doesn't believe in God and he argues all the time. And he says that's a fallacy. You either believe in God or you don't believe in God. If you don't know, then you don't believe in God. You either believe in God or you don't believe in God. That's it. There is not an I
Oh,
don't know.
but that's
I don't
clearly
know is the same as I don't believe because the state is belief or not belief.
but that's
And not
black and white thinking, though.
and not belief includes I don't know.
But see, I think that's black and white thinking, right? Whenever I
No,
hear black and
it's
white
a
thinking,
it's a binary thing. You can't take a binary thing and make it three states.
but you're assuming it's a binary thing.
Yeah, it is. How can it not be?
Well,
Belief
I
or
don't
not
know. I
belief?
don't know, but
No. Okay.
to be
If I
open.
don't know, what does that mean? It means I don't believe.
No, it means you don't know.
I don't know. I think there should be a fourth one that you do believe and you don't know that you believe.
See, now you're measuring two
Wait,
states.
hang on. No, no, no,
Because
Greg.
there's like
You're
two
Excuse me.
measuring two states.
factors, so there should be four
I get your point.
options.
I get your point. But that's the point. You're measuring in your scenario. You're measuring two things: belief and decision.
Yeah, so I'll tell you for me personally, because I
Mhm.
this is why
Yeah.
this is not binary. So I'm not 100% sure that God exists, but I want God to exist.
Hmm.
And I feel like if God exists and I change my behavior, I'm going to be better off. So I'm doing the Jordan Peterson thing.
Yeah.
I'm basically acting as if it's true.
Yeah. But this has nothing to do with do you believe or do you not believe. This has to do with I'm undecided. If you're undecided, then you don't believe yet. You're either 100% sure or you're not 100% sure. That's it. There's nothing else.
Gee, I think no, 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 no. I think they're more on a spectrum of probability, at least for me.
Well, then that goes back to the idea that everything's on a spectrum, right?
I mean, I think for this case, for me, yeah, that's why I can't buy into your
But
binary.
anyway, so you were talking about him talking about he was on a mission of God from God. Let's go back to the topic. Why did you bring up his mission from God? Sorry.
Well, because there's a couple of things. Because one, a lot of people believe in God. So
Mhm.
all of a sudden, if he states that, like an event has happened, and then people believe that that's a God thing, he's already winning a lot of support, right? He's doing a very, very deep emotional ploy for people to believe that he's the chosen one to temporarily bring things back into order. The whole whatever Luke Skywalker thing, right? You're the no no Obi the Darth Vader. You were supposed to be the chosen one. Everybody believed that. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Greg, help me out. Can you interpret my NyQuil delusions here?
What did you say?
Yeah, exactly. Uh, so what I'm saying, that's it's going back
He's
to
branding himself as the chosen one,
as the chosen one. Yes, that's
yes,
The chosen one.
the
right?
chosen one.
Chosen by God to make America great, to protect
Again,
America,
make
to
make
grow
it.
the economy, to whatever, right?
Yes, right, right.
So,
Like Luke
and,
Skywalker?
yeah,
So,
exactly.
No, Darth Vader. Remember, he was the chosen one. He was supposed to be not Darth Vader, but what was his name? Anakin Skywalker.
Anakin?
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
same. It's the same story. It's just different.
But that's a
Trump is
prequel
Darth
plot.
Vader.
So I don't know.
Uh, no, so okay, so that you just brought up something that's interesting to me. It's one of the things that I've been worried about is the fact that we don't our patriotism in the country is down, right? We're not taught to respect and like our country anymore. We're taught to question everything that our country's ever done.
Yeah, but see,
And
that's fair enough. That's the whole point of this podcast, is right.
I don't think you take a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 9-year-old and tell them all the horrible things America has done. You start by telling them high level stories of the accomplishments of Americans. Then, as they learn more, you add nuance to what they understand. And eventually, by the time they reach a certain age and they've been exposed to the topic, they understand it all. This idea of dumping all of American history, all the good and the bad, all of our sins, along with all of our wins, on a bunch of kids is idiotic.
Oh, I like that.
Kids develop over time, understanding develops over time, and the fact that our teachers or our systems are too lazy to take the long road and just try to dump everything. It's not just them, it's everything, right? Everyone wants a quick answer. Even I think this way. It's like when I talk to my boss and I try to convince him that this decision is a good decision, I give him every single fact, all the analysis I've ever done. I walk him through my process of going from not knowing anything to this decision today. And he's like, I don't want to know that. And there's no way they're gonna take it all in. They're gonna take in whatever they understand and make a decision based upon their filter. They filtered out most of what I've told them because they didn't follow the journey with me.
Yeah,
So
'cause
I
it's
need to take
complicated.
slowly. I need to give them the basic understanding, then bit by bit, or I need to build enough trust with them. They just default to my decision. Well, either way. But the point being, the idea that you could dump all the information on someone and they're gonna come out with a right decision is dumb.
So, okay, listen. So then, do you believe in Santa Claus?
Do I believe in Santa Claus?
Or
No.
do you believe that you should tell your children about Santa Claus?
Yeah.
Why? But that's lying, though.
So,
Well, so you're saying it's okay to lie?
do you believe children should eat? Do you believe they should be self-sufficient? Are you going to feed them when they're 3 months old? Or are you just going to say, dump the food in their lap and go?
Well, I believe that yes, you should feed children. Yes.
I mean, the point
I'm a
being,
big fan of that.
people need to learn, right? They don't know. Eventually they know.
It's also fun.
To fight fish.
Just saying.
No, the whole idea here is you don't expect the final outcome that you want to be what happens on day one.
No, no, of course not. Of course. Yeah, you got to work your way into it. It's like
I mean,
you don't
this
learn
is the problem
calculus
with
day
social
one.
media. This is the problem with so much stuff, is that we're expecting the end result tomorrow or today even, and we're not willing to put in the effort and the time to get there.
Well, yeah,
And,
that's just
and
that's
that applies to teaching kids. That applies to growing up. That applies to learning new skills. That applies to going to school. Whatever it is, there's an end result that we're going for, and we don't shortcut it by dumping all the responsibility on the person who's learning.
yeah, well, that's the whole idea of raising children, right? Is it's a slow process over 18 years where you
Yeah.
100% protect them, and as they grow up, you start giving them a little bit of ability to make their own decisions.
I think it's 30 years now, not 18. But
Okay,
um,
probably so. Yeah, yeah. I know. I heard somebody say that after 18 years, we're still not sure. Chris, one thing I wrote down here, I think I may want to make a t-shirt out of it. You said our sins and wins.
Yeah.
That's a great statement.
Well, and that's the point, right? To me, you make someone happy and proud and to be who they are and what they are. You build them up so they have strength and resilience.
Yes.
And then at some point, you can start to bring in the weaknesses and talk about them. So they are now strong enough to handle the fact that they aren't perfect.
Yes,
Right? This
okay.
is
Yeah.
so telling a third grader that that America had slaves and treated people poorly and blah blah blah. They need to know that at some point. I don't know if they need to know it in third grade.
Well, no, I agree. I think I can agree with you mostly, actually. As long, okay, I think it's okay to simplify things, but not to lie to them.
So you don't think we should be telling him about Santa Claus
I really don't.
or the Tooth Fairy?
I really don't.
Tooth Fairy's a weird one to me. We're gonna take a piece of your
Well,
body and give you some money for it. That really is not an ideal thing to teach someone.
I know.
okay, so something like the Tooth Fairy though and Santa Claus, that's not a big lie. And you know what I mean? Because
It's a
when
cool.
I don't think people feel like they've been betrayed when they find out the truth.
That would
But
make a
it,
movie. Imagine that a kid finds out the Tooth Fairy's not real and then he goes crazy.
Oh my gosh, I remember when I realized Santa Claus wasn't true. I had a meltdown. I couldn't believe it because you need to understand this is not about the kids. This is about manipulation of our children. Say you better behave or else Santa Claus is not going to
How
be
old
your
were
gift.
you?
I don't know, probably too old, but
You're not gonna say like, yeah, we were like 18 years old when you
I
found
think
out.
I'm like
Yes.
33 or something, probably. I don't know.
well,
What do you mean
well,
Santa Claus isn't
how
true?
did you find out? Like, how did you find out?
I had a question. I was wondering, I'm thinking, because I asked my dad, I was thinking, I'm not sure about this Santa Claus thing. Santa Claus, Santa Claus is that real? He's like, no, not real. I'm like, so who ate the cookies that I did? I'm like, oh my gosh. I wish he would have kind of, brought me down a little bit, more gentle or whatever like that. But how did you guys learn Santa? What happened when you learned Santa Claus wasn't real? How did it affect you?
I I don't know how I was affected. I kind of felt that it wasn't real for a long time, for years.
For
So
years.
Yeah.
I knew where the presents were hid in the house before they were put out.
Okay.
So when you see that the present from Santa Claus was one of the presents that was being hidden, it kind of comes, well, hey, there's something there, right?
So you figured it out. Okay. So, but
Yeah, I know. I just figured it out through critical thinking.
your critical thinking. And then how did you feel when you finally realized that, well, hey, America is not always the good guys, right? We do a lot of bad shit too.
When did I mean, we all learn about some of the stuff. It's whitewashed, but we learn about some of the stuff in junior high and high school, right?
Yeah.
Maybe even grade school, but that would
Mhm.
be like fifth, sixth grade. Um, I think by the time you're that old, you understand that there's more dimensions to a personality or a person
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
just being good all the time.
Yeah.
And I think by that point you begin to accept the fact that America might not be good all the time.
But then what about the fact that we did tremendous evil as well too, along with good? I mean, how do you blend these two things together?
So, give me an example of the tremendous evil that you're thinking about.
Well, I mean, it's very common now that I'm learning more about what the CIA does. They go in and overthrow governments, assassinate people, all not for good reasons, but solely for our benefit, right? Or for the benefits of a small group of people, actually. I mean, when you start to learn that, you're like, yeah, that kind of sucks, you know?
So, do you want me to take the view of a global citizen or of an American?
I would prefer both. I'd like to see the contrast.
As a global citizen, we've done some horrible things
Yeah,
that, in many ways, would I would consider unforgivable.
yeah,
And I understand why the world hates us.
yeah.
I also understand that it is what made the world safe.
Oh, yeah, no, right, yeah,
Not, it made us safe, but it made the world safe, right?
yeah,
This global shipping empire that the globalization that occurred after World War II was because America kept a lot of the dirtiness from getting too big,
yeah,
right? They said you either sign up and join our group of our cabal of countries that we're going to protect, and they're going to do trade, and trade happened, and ships got bigger, and they didn't have to send warships to escort them, and it got cheaper and cheaper, and pretty soon every country was able to specialize in whatever they could. If I had a poor country and all I could grow was wheat, I could grow wheat, which meant America didn't have to grow as much wheat. They could grow soybeans instead, which grow in different soil, and they could make more money. And the wealth of the world went up
oh,
because
no
shipping
doubt.
costs went down. Because America had the military and was willing to pull the trigger via the CIA to do this.
Yeah,
So I look at that and go, the world is where it is today because America was willing to do what it did,
yeah, yeah,
right? On the other hand, what it did in many cases was deplorable.
yeah.
From an ethical standpoint, we did a lot of horrible things.
Horrible stuff, yeah,
Now,
exactly.
but we go back to that question, is it good to the good of the many versus the good of the few, right? Is it
Yeah,
good to kill one person to save many?
yeah,
Um, you don't want to be the one person who was killed, but in some ways, just on a sheer statistics or actuarial viewpoint, yeah, it is.
yeah, it's probably better. Yeah,
The livelihood of the average person today, has gone up in the last 100, 200, 300 years, definitely over the last 80 years of American power. Isn't that worth the pain and suffering caused or not? I'm not
yeah,
comfortable making that call.
yeah,
In my mind, because I'm part of the group that gotten the reaped the most benefits of it,
yeah,
I'm biased towards saying, yeah, it was worth it.
yeah. No, no, I hear you.
But that is my bias.
So that totally makes sense. Yeah, exactly. And then it always comes down to me to like, okay, so there's two arguments to support you. One is say, yeah, we did some bad stuff, right? But look at the other guys. They did worse stuff, right? In many cases. And then the other thing is like it just comes down to human nature. It's like this is just human nature. We both have good and bad stuff in us all the time.
Well, we're talking about when we're Jamar, when we're talking about love, right?
Yeah,
So, you know, without going into, being able to build love and all, I think you need to love yourself.
yeah.
And by not doing that, that's a source of a lot of problems.
Oh my
You need
gosh,
to
yeah.
love your family,
Yeah,
and we're talking like unconditional love. You need to get to a point where you can accept all the bad things with all these people.
yeah,
Then you need to love your friends, your extended tribe, and then hopefully you can build enough alignment with the people around you to love your city, your
yeah,
state, your country, and then everyone.
yeah.
You know, um, I was there's this book that I've been wanting to read, and it finally came up on my library hold list. It's called American Nations,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about the fact that America is not one nation. It's a
Oh,
federation of 11 different nations. In fact, North America is three federations: Canada, America, and Mexico.
yeah,
And when you look at it, and 13 provinces, 50 states, all that kind of stuff. But when you look at the breakdown of culture in America,
mm-hmm.
like Appalachia goes through where you live and comes over from the east and moves over. The South, we're a different group. He has one area he calls Yankeedom, right? And the fact that the left coast, which is kind of came out of Yankeedom and pioneering spirit. So all these thoughts, you find that certain parts of the country are more democratic or more Republican in their beliefs, and a lot of it has to go back to where the settlers came from. Were they from Scotland? Were they from Ireland? Were they from England? Were they landed gentry from England? right? And so he actually breaks it down to 11 different nations, and it's very interesting. If you want, I went ahead and loaded it up into the Notebook LM if you want to listen to that summary of it.
Yeah, that's
But
interesting.
but
That's fascinating. Yeah.
it crosses state lines, and so if you look at a map of these nations, it's really telling,
Yeah.
right? Northern California, the split is right at the Bay Area,
Yeah.
up to Oregon. That's the left coast. Down where we are in Southern California, it's much more of a southwest viewpoint.
Interesting.
And you think about it, we've always talked about San Francisco being way more liberal than Southern California.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of makes sense from if you look at the map. Let me see if I can find the map.
Well, and I was watching another video that's a different way of like explaining this, is that I don't know that it has to do with geographic area so much, but it has to do with big cities versus rural areas. Because if you look at Republican versus Democratic, you'll see not based on state, but you'll see based on population mostly. Big cities always tend to lean more Democratic. Rural areas tend to go more conservative.
Yeah, I would say that that's true, but those principles come from things like education, the kind of self-sufficiency. Like in a city, you can't be as self-reliant and self-sufficient as you can when you're on a farm.
Yeah.
Let me show you what this is. I think when you see it, you go, oh.
Oh, interesting.
So you see Yankeedom up there, right? And then you see New Netherlands. And if you look at who fought in the Revolutionary War, right? And he goes into like why these different groups joined together during the Revolutionary War.
Oh,
Like
that's
New Netherlands, which is New York, wasn't a huge supporter of the revolution. Yeah, they fought. I mean, and there were battles and stuff. But compared to like Tidewater is your all your rich white founding fathers, pretty much. And then the Deep South, right, where slavery came in, and it is a different mindset. In the Deep South, it really was an idea of white supremacy, where everyone else, not blacks, everyone else was below the ruling class there. Appalachia was very much anti-authoritarianism, and they fought against any authority, including the established American authority there. So it's a really thing. And as everyone moved west, you can see later on these other nations formed.
Yeah.
But he goes into the background of these different groups and like the religious aspect of it. Like Yankeedom comes from Puritans, right? And they didn't put up with different beliefs. It was like you had to have our belief. So they were also very prejudicial, I guess.
Fascinating. It's a crazy that, it's crazy with all these different belief systems and left and right that we can kind of get along and not kill each other. It's sort of fascinating how we get along.
Okay, then now you can start going back into spiritual stuff, right? Because there's the ethics and then there's morals, and whether or not there's a true objective ethical value. I don't know.
There might be, but there's always caveats, right? It's like,
Or ethical moral value. Sorry, an objective moral value, let's say.
because being Christian, it's like, we believe we got the support of God, but at the same time, we believe we should kill the heathens, so send them to hell where they belong.
I had a view. We talk about constraints and how important constraints are in being able to think.
Yes.
And it occurred to me, the Ten Commandments are constraints.
Mm-hmm.
And they make society work better because they give us constraints to live within.
Yeah, but I've always viewed religion as kind of the glue that sort of binds us together, in some way.
Yeah, but I mean, religions can vary drastically in what they do and their rituals and how they act.
Yeah, but they're all the
But to me,
major ones,
the
though,
Ten Commandments is your framework.
the framework. Yeah, right.
Here's the basic tenets. Here's the basic constraints of how to live your life.
Yeah, right.
Right. I think the in the Jewish book, they also have like, things you can do and you can't do, right? About like eating fish and all that, or shellfish and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and it occurs to me that I think, yeah, it shows the power of constraint, because I mean, we talk about constraint all the time. Sorry, my things are going off here, but I do think constraint is built into every aspect of our history.
I think it has to be. You have to have a framework to operate from, right? Because things become so complicated. And this is what's happening in my mind right now. I'm like, this is so complicated. I've got to simplify so that I can be a halfway decent person, right? So, like you're
Mhm.
talking about the Ten Commandments, it's like, okay, I shouldn't kill my neighbor. I shouldn't try to lust after my neighbor's wife, right? I mean, what I don't know what the other ones. I shouldn't go around. What are the other 10? I don't even know the Ten Commandments.
Take the God's name in vain. Um, what else is there? Kill, steal, covet thy life.
Don't kill, steal,
Something
covet.
about a property line, I think, right?
I don't know about property line. I'm not sure.
Is one of them also idols?
Something. Don't have false idols. Maybe something. Yeah.
That's social media and pop stars for you.
Yeah. But it does put a structure together that you have some sort of rules. Yeah. It's basically laws, right? I mean,
Well,
yeah.
how do you take a bunch of people with different cultural values and have them not kill each other? You need to give them rules.
You got to
So
give
if
some
if
rules,
you
right?
force them all into the same religion, right, as some of the old school,
Yeah.
the Crusades and the like, you force them all into the same religion, and then you force them to follow the same rules. Then you can have people with distinctly different beliefs living together. It's one of the you look at Europe. Europe has multiple Christian-based religions, but they all do tend to get along because they have core, I would say, core
Yeah.
values that are the
They're
same.
close enough, right?
Right?
Yeah.
You start going to the Middle East and other areas, and those core values aren't as visible between the religions, and you end up
Yeah.
with a lot more strife. And
They change. Yeah. Yeah. So let's go back to what your original question was, actually.
so I wanted to go through, the idea of tariffs, but the first thing you need, like you said, is go to the why. So why does he want a tariff? Well, he wants to make America stronger. Okay, what is the goal here? To protect certain industries, maybe, to punish certain countries, maybe, to I think there's all these things, and we could write out probably half a dozen reasons why he wants to tariff.
And
There
and
might
it's
be a
the,
primary one,
and it's a negotiation strategy. I think that's the biggest one,
and
actually.
it's a negotiation. So, but then the concern is, okay. So what does it do when you raise? So let now logically walk through. What
Yeah.
is a tariff? A tariff is an extra tax on goods going into a country,
Yeah. Right. Right.
right? So we're going to say goods coming to America are going to be tariffed. We're going to add, let's just say 10%. And he's saying 25, but let's
No,
add,
no,
say
no.
it's
What is just the number? Yeah. So basically, let's go back and clarify. So let's say we're getting stuff that's coming in from, let's say, Mexico. We're going to say we're going to add 10%
yeah.
that
So
Americans have to pay. So where
mhm.
does the 10% go? How does it technically work?
Yeah. So you're going to add 10%. So basically, that importer or the person who's exporting to the United States is going to have to pay 10% to the U.S. government of that value, right?
So the importer, the person, let's say Mexico
Tax.
now has to pay 10% to the
Yeah.
government, actually.
Yeah.
And so we're
So
assuming, right,
so,
that
so
they're
if,
going
if
to
it
raise
costs
it.
$100,
Yeah.
now it's 110 bucks. 10 bucks. There's 110 bucks. 10 bucks is going to go to the U.S. government, and 100 bucks is going to be paid by whoever's importing it.
Wait, hang on. Let me make sure I get this. So then let's say there's a dude in the United States. He's buying something, right? Let's
Yeah.
just
So you're in Mexico. I'm in America, and I buy the widget from you. It costs, and it's 100 bucks.
it's 100
But
bucks.
now there's a tariff on it. So now I've got to pay you 100 bucks, and I got to pay the U.S. government 10 bucks.
Wait, who's you're in Mexico? Who
Whoever's importing it, I'm importing it.
you're importing it. So you're in America.
Yeah, the money could come out of your pocket, or it could come out of my pocket,
Yeah, right.
right? But the point being, it's coming out of one of our pockets. So let's say it's coming out of my pocket.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so now as the importer, I just paid an extra 10%. The government got 10%. They're going to go do whatever they want with it,
Yeah.
right? Maybe they spend that money on helping the economy. Maybe they have, who knows, right?
Sure.
But now I'm at $110.
As
Okay.
you're the guy importing, you're an
Yeah.
American, right?
Yeah. Now before I could have sold that product to my neighbor for $200 and made
Yeah,
100% profit. Woohoo!
yeah,
Right? But now if I sell for $200, I only make $90 profit.
yeah, right, right.
Yeah.
So
And
the
maybe that's enough where I don't raise the price. But let's say I sell it to my neighbor for $110 normally and I get $10 profit.
yeah,
Now that's already what it cost me, 110. So I mean now I got to raise the price on my neighbor. You're gonna have to pay $120 because I still need to make a profit.
yeah,
To make my
right.
$10 profit, you have to pay 120.
So
So
the
the price
assu-
just went up for him.
yeah, so the assumption is that the demand from an American standpoint, the demand for other countries' products is going to go down because
Yeah.
now they cost more.
Yeah. So
That's the picture,
now
right?
my neighbor says I'm not going to buy as many.
I'm not going to buy as many, right?
So now I go I don't need as many. So I go to you. I don't need as many.
Yeah,
Sell me half what you did last year.
yeah, right,
And
right.
you're going, whoa, crap. Half means my profits go down. I got to fire people. I got to close factories. I got to sell off my factories. So now you're like, at some point, there's a threshold where I'm not making enough money to make this work.
So the
Oh,
idea is
screw this. I'm just gonna get rid of this company and I'm gonna go do something else.
yeah, so the idea is that it's hurting everybody, but it's
Yeah.
going to hurt people outside the United States
But
more than it's going to hurt
so
us.
now, well, no, so now you decide I'm not going to make this anymore. It's just not worth it. So
Yeah,
now I can't do that. Now I've got to go find someone else to buy it from. So now I go find an American company because part of the goal here is to make Americans make more stuff. I go find an American company that makes this. Now the American company doesn't have the benefits of cheap labor that you
yeah,
have in Mexico. So now Greg's at this American company. He says I can make it for 150.
yeah,
So now I got to buy this from Greg from 150. I'm not paying tariffs anymore.
yeah.
But now I go to my neighbor and say, you got to pay 160 now because I still got to make my $10.
But
Now my neighbor's paying $160 for that.
so the thing is
The
though,
government's not making a tariff anymore.
yeah, but they're
And
getting
so,
no, that,
yeah.
right? So
So, the whole idea is this is, when you follow it, you want to damage the other country, you want to damage the other country's industry, whatever it is, right? Now, let's say the American guy, sorry, my customer now has to pay 160. He goes, crap, I can't pay 160. I'll buy even less.
yeah,
So now, Greg, who was making 50% what you were originally making, I tell him I need even less.
yeah,
So now I need you to make 25% of what the original load was. So
yeah,
now, and then I'm making less money because I'm selling less. So I start to raise prices to compensate for the
yeah,
fact that I'm
right.
making less money. And so now we've driven down the world's ability to produce this. We went from 100% production to 25 to maybe even less, right? This is how you hurt industries to where they stop developing.
Well,
At
but
some point, the pain is so much that people get out of it. And then what you end up with is one maker who's making TVs or one maker who's making cell phones or one, and then the one maker has to charge a lot to make it because there's no economy of scale anymore.
well, so I'm thinking about this, and I think that as a surface level analysis, that's probably true. So no doubt there's short-term pain, right? But
Mhm.
the idea is that now they want to have bring American jobs back, have America bring manufacturing back. So it's going to start to now the thing is going to be like, listen, I'm not going to buy from Mexico anymore. It's good, it's costing me more, but now I'm going to be forced to buy to the United States. And the idea is that hopefully more people in the United States will say, listen, I'm going to ramp production up. And you're not going to get it for 100, but you're right. Maybe I can get it for 120 or 130 actually. But that is going to strengthen America and weaken other countries in the long term, right? So is that his game plan? He's like, listen, I'm willing to take short-term pain because I know long-term will be better.
That may be
That's
what
the
he wants to
idea,
do.
right?
But then we start saying, well, is there another way to get that result?
Well, yeah, but
Without causing all of that pain for the end American customer who's paying 20% more, 60% more, whatever it is.
well, there might be, but listen, you got to remember Trump's principal thing because he doesn't have a lot of time. He's just like using the nuclear option in almost every single case, and that may get compliance from the other countries. So if it
Problem is
does,
by
then
nuclear option, you're hurting us.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But are we, how much are we getting hurt versus hurting them? Because the other countries are freaking out, right? If you put a tariff
Well,
on them, they freak and they
okay,
make
so
paid, right?
let me ask you this. If you let's say we got all these, it's not true anymore. The car industry, foreign countries produce most of their cars in the U.S. anymore. But let's say we were importing all of the foreign cars that came in,
Yeah,
right? As an example, and we decided to tariff them at whatever percentage rate.
yeah.
So that drives down the number of cars being produced. By driving down the number of cars being produced, you're actually driving up the cost because you're not getting the economies of scale anymore. So anyone who wants to buy those cars in the U.S. is now going to pay not the tariff difference, but probably 2 or 3 times the tariff difference,
Okay,
right?
who knows? Yeah, we don't know the
Because-
actual numbers, but yeah.
that then drives down sales. Driving down sales means less new cars. What does less new cars mean? Well, maybe we'll get more mechanics out of that. But maybe what will end up happening is we'll use more gas because we're getting less gas efficient because you're still using our old cars. What does that mean as far as people buying cool things to add to their cars and making mods to their cars? Those industries are going to be hit pretty hard because suddenly, you're not going to put a wrap on a 10-year-old car. So basically, it's the downstream effect of not destroying, but downsizing a particular part of our economy downsizes in everything that relies on that, right? All the
Well,
manufacturers of parts and all that sort of thing.
yeah. No, I hear all that, all right, and that's probably all true, right? I don't have a problem. The level of impact we don't know, but the reason for the tariff is to get other countries to change their behavior, right? That's the point. And that's what Trump says. Listen, if you keep sending people,
What is the behavior that's the problem?
well, it depends. It's like for Mexico, they're sending in people, sending them through our border, right? We didn't want that. So we're saying if you don't stop this, we're going to tariff you. That's what he's trying to fix.
So you're basically saying this other thing that you're doing, which is not related to economics at all, pisses us off. So we're going to hit you with economic damage.
Correct. I believe that's the vast bulk of the reason why. It's a threat, right?
I haven't heard that stated.
Oh, you haven't? I've heard it every time.
I have not heard that stated.
How have you not heard that? That's like common, actually.
I haven't heard that stated.
Okay.
Because most of the stuff we're talking about, is well, the borders are their own issue, I guess, in some ways.
Well, but let's just talk about the border because that's the most common one, and that's the same thing with Canada. Trump is saying, look, if you don't stop sending people across the border, we're going to tariff you as a punishment because we want you to change that behavior. That's what he's trying to do. And so he's, in his mind, right or wrong, he's thinking that short-term pain is worth it for the long-term benefit that we're going to get. And see, this is the thing that economists don't take into account. They view it just as just as the financial part, but not about the changing of the bad behavior.
Actually, I think they do much more than they used to. Like if you read Freakonomics.
Oh, I've seen it a long time ago. Yeah.
Oh, Freakonomics. They had a podcast, but the book was great too, and they had a couple versions of it, right? But they go into how behavior is impacted by economics.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah. Of course, like, that's the essence of capitalism, right? If my price of copper goes up, then I'm like, oh, I'm going to look for something else other than copper, right? Because I still need to put water through a pipe, but maybe do I really need copper? Maybe I can do something else. And that changes behavior, right? That changes behavior of everybody when the price goes up.
The idea that, quite often those second order and third order effects we're talking about are the result of something else, right? So the change you want is X. I want to change X.
Yeah,
What's happening is that change of X, which is the goal of your policy or decision,
yes, right,
has its own impact.
Yeah, right. But
X causes Y, Y causes Z, Z brings us back to A, and so you end up with, an unforeseen or event in A or in Z because you decided to do X. So what happens then? Okay, so let's go back and say the tariffs are there to control immigration policy across the board.
That's one reason, yeah. But let's do that because otherwise we get too much.
Let's follow that line of reasoning through. What happens then? So we go to Mexico, and I go to Canada, Mexico. I don't care. Canada's pissed off because he says he wants to take over Toronto or whatever it was. So let's say we do that. So we're going to put pressure.
We're doing it. It's done. It's already done.
We're going to put pressure on a country and says, unless you stop these people coming across your border into our country,
Yes.
we're going to charge you this much.
Yeah, we're gonna yeah, we have a certain amount of pain, so we're gonna put the pain back on you. Right, exactly.
and we're going to use the money to, well, probably, the excuse would be we'll use the money to protect our borders.
I
Whatever.
think I think that's it. I think that's his thing, and I think he's doing that along with multiple other things. That's why I'm saying he's trying to change the complete world order, actually.
So now you're dependent on how those countries react.
Yeah.
So the country can decide to be stricter, whatever, however that
What
is.
they already have, right? What they already have.
So is it? So okay. So the way I'm seeing this, I'm ignoring the negative impact on Americans at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, because it's going to be a short-term negative impact, no doubt, right?
Once you hit an industry, it's not short term. So then, once industries are damaged, it's not short term anymore.
Well, yeah, but how long does it
And
take?
once someone loses a job and is out of work for 6 months or whatever, I mean, you're talking about major pain for individuals if that happens. If that happens, basically, what happens is a country got lazy, keeping people from coming across through their country across the border,
Yeah.
and they could have gotten lazy for money reasons or for ideological reasons. They thought
Whatever.
it was
That's right.
we were
Doesn't
helping
matter.
people. And now they need to pony up money
Yeah.
to take care of it,
Yes.
or pay us and we'll take care of it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's I think that's pretty much it. It's not any more complicated than that.
If that were truly the thinking,
Yeah.
it should have been stated that way by someone. I've never heard it stated that way.
Oh, that's what I hear all the time. Maybe I'm deriving that, but that's the way.
So no, this is a messaging thing. I have not heard it stated that way.
Well, I hear that all the time. I can't believe you didn't hear that.
No, I don't hear that at all.
That's the
You hear it from the left side that you listen to?
not the left side. I hear it from Trump, right?
I don't hear him say that. If you're hearing it, I'm not hearing him say that.
Okay, then I'll find next time I find it, I'll send you a link to it or something like that. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway, okay, so that at least I get that. So then what happens after that?
Well, I don't know what happens. Most of the time, they may just change their behavior just based on the threat of it. He doesn't have to tariff at all, actually.
Well, Canada did that even before he was president. They were already making those changes.
But now we're tariffed. Apparently, tariffs are going to start. They've started or just are going to
Yeah, but
start.
didn't Canada's government say that it was a mistake to let all these people in or something like that? No, or
Well,
maybe
no,
that
it's funny. Yeah, yeah. Now
maybe
we gotta
UK.
pay.
I
It's a
forgot.
mistake, right? Exactly.
Yeah, and I didn't realize how many more people were coming across the Canadian border than the Mexican border.
And he's doing it everywhere. He's doing it with NATO. He's basically saying that, hey, NATO, unless you start paying more money, we're not going to be protecting you anymore. NATO countries, actually, not NATO.
Yeah,
So,
he did that last time.
yeah.
But that actually had to me an agreement through the treaty that they weren't living up to.
Yeah, they got to pay like a minimum of 2% or so. I don't know what it is, 2 to 5% or something like that. Yeah. And they weren't doing it, so he's calling them on that. So that's what I'm saying is he is literally trying to change the world because his
So
ultimately his main message is, let me just finish this one thought, is that America's being taken advantage of. We're too generous, and we're going to stop it.
yeah, no, to me that's a messaging problem because then that makes you feel like, oh, they're against us, oh, they're bad, they're horrible thing, and we're going to force this change. To me, it's much more like, hey, your policies are costing us money,
Yeah.
so we're going to start charging you to cover those costs.
Yeah,
That's
same
it.
thing. Same thing, right?
No, it's not the same thing because the other one is like it's like you're saying it's a punishment. You're saying that you're actually making them bad guys, which is going to upset people who don't like that approach. To me, you just it's a simple business transaction, and you state it as a business transaction. Your policies cost us money. We need that covered, so we're going to start charging you taxes.
Well, that's what he's saying, but okay, that's what he's saying at the core. But you got to realize Trump is bombastic. He loves doing big things. That's his deal, right? So that's just what you get with Trump.
Yeah, because I think the issue is if the tariffs survive, then we've got a lot of second order and third order impacts that,
Yeah.
that are going to be lasting impacts.
Yeah, right. Right. And so what Trump's strategy is, he's saying, okay, I'm going to do this. These people are taking advantage of us. I'm going to put more pain on them. And at the same time, we're going to up our domestic energy production. So now we're going to be more internally, right? We're going to be more self-sufficient, so we don't have to pay these other people for energy. And so I
Well,
think he's thinking of it
that's
holistically.
that's to me that's a fallacy right there. If the idea is to protect industry and the like, I told you I think last time, right, that U.S. Steel is going bankrupt. You know, one of the largest companies that ever existed in the
Yeah.
50s is going bankrupt.
Yeah.
And so Japan Steel made a deal to buy them out,
Hmm.
and the Biden administration said no.
Okay.
But they're not offering any protections to U.S. Steel to protect those jobs, to protect those
Okay.
industries.
Okay.
So it's like, well, we don't want you to go to be in the control of another country. I get it. We want to
Yeah.
have control over our own industries, but then you're not willing to pony up money to protect those industries.
Okay.
So you put in a law, you know. So this is where the idea of tariffs would help to keep some of that industry.
Yeah.
You know, part of the problem is steel is one of those things that we just don't. We use so much less. We use like 10% of the steel that we used to make buildings in the past.
Well,
So when
you-
they tear out the skyscraper, we can make 10 buildings out of what the steel we get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess,
It's cycle than it is to
I mean, I guess we're talking about tariffs, but I mean, to me, tariffs is just a technique to get what he wants, right?
well, tariffs are one of the main reasons Japan attacked the U.S. in World War II.
Yeah, but it didn't end well for Japan.
Didn't end well for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they lost or won. Millions of people died. To me, any action you take where someone comes out thinking they have to fight you
Yeah.
is not an option. So I think when we think about tariffs, and we're in a different world than we were then, but the thought here was America was going to protect its own industries, and it tariffed. And the problem was those tariffs were causing problems for countries that were actually playing the game fairly.
Yeah. 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 I mean, there's no doubt. I don't understand. So I have a hard time arguing the nuanced points of it. All I know is just the general idea of what he's trying to do, right? And you got to remember too that the bulk of it, in my mind, is just pomp and show and just throwing out a threat, right? That's the bulk of Trump. Have you read The Art of the Deal? If you read The Art of the Deal, the book, you'll understand.
Years ago.
But that's Trump. He just throws out some bombastic claim, right? And then
Yeah, and so that
and then
doesn't
and then
bother me as much. Again, I'm more worried about what's happening around him than what he does.
what do you mean by that?
I'm more worried about some of the changes that could occur. And I worry about this for any of the current president and
Yeah.
most recent presidencies. Changes that occur within the workings of government that we don't know about.
Oh my God. Yeah, there's a lot of changes going on. I mean, lots of them. And I don't understand any of the details. I thought it was really interesting though. That what's the guy's what's his name?
Kennedy?
Kennedy, yeah. Um, I saw a little clip that was so interesting because people were talking about making money or whatever, and he made a public claim in front of the people in front of Congress, basically pointing out about how much money they were taking from all the big agriculture, the drug companies, all this, sort of directly calling them out, and they didn't really say anything about that, right? I kind of like his general theory, though. He's like, listen, we're spending a lot of money, and yet we're getting sicker and sicker. It's like it's not working.
He's got some crazy ideas, but he's also got. I think he's tapped into a lot of the frustration that's out there.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, I think that's why he did relatively well for a while, right? He wasn't mainstream establishment. I think he was like a Trump without the backing in some ways, right? Because he wanted to make changes and things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when they were questioning him and they were attacking him, and did you say this? Did you say? And I really don't like when Congress is getting that way, and it's like it's a yes or no question. He goes, no, it's not.
Yeah.
But what they should say every time they say it's a yes or no question, I go, no, it isn't.
Yeah.
And just stop there and say when they say yes or no, no. It's not a yes or no question. That's it.
Yeah, but these are just general high school debate techniques, right? These are just standard white belt stuff, right?
Those aren't debate techniques. Those are argument techniques.
Okay,
Debate is
argument.
actual conversation.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, yeah. Okay,
Oh,
whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Okay, fair enough then. Yeah, but these are just techniques. Like the general rule, one of them is if you can't attack the actual position, then you attack him personally, right? I mean, these are just standard stuff.
Well, I would love it if someone would go up and if like when they ask questions like that, they could go, the person being questioned goes, that was a marvelous bit of acting.
Yeah, 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 that would be good. But you
Then they
gotta
say you're being disrespectful to the house and blah blah. They would say, I'm like, no, I'm disrespecting you.
well, I mean, because you have to understand that the people in running Congress, right, are for the most part, maybe not every single one of them, but the vast bulk of them are all just selfish. They take money from a lot of different sources. So, of course, when you take money from somebody, now you're beholden to support that person, actually.
Yep.
I mean, that's why, as a general rule, people are not happy with Congress because, you go in with no money and you leave very wealthy, actually, because where did that money come from? It didn't come from your salary. And that's just human nature.
Yep.
And I think we would all do the same thing, right? I mean, we kind of act high and mighty and think, oh, I would never be exposed to that. But it's like, I don't know. Maybe some of us wouldn't. I'm not sure I wouldn't.
No, with where I am right now, you give me a 2-year congressman's term, one term, I'd be out, get my retirement, get my health care. I'm happy. They have good retirement health care packages. Do they get more money if they serve more terms?
I don't know. They get, well, yes, in the fact that, yes, but not from their paycheck. They get more money because they make deals and they pass
That's
laws.
a different thing. That's a different thing. So what I would do is I do one term, get my health care and my and my pension, and then I go off and do whatever I want to do.
Yeah. But a lot of politicians they're lifelong politicians, right? They've been in there a long time. So I guess the question is from a logic and critical thinking standpoint, is it possible to defend against basic human natures, which is what the framers of the Constitution were trying to do because they understood that power corrupts absolutely. So they were trying to balance the power. They're trying to put terms in. They're trying to minimize the level of corruption that would happen actually. But yet, Congress figures out a way to get around those things.
Um, Sorry, I just had a thought.
Greg, what's your thought on all this?
I stay out of politics,
Yeah,
basically.
and okay, that's a really good thing actually. And we try to too, but we don't do a very good job of it. Um, but what I'd like to do is figure out how can logic and critical thinking help? Or how can we not get fooled and duped by some of this stuff? Because I think Congress lies a lot, right? I mean, they lie constantly.
Well, my strategy is I don't know what's going on
Yeah, me neither, actually. I just make stuff up. Yeah.
unless it
Okay.
directly affects me.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's just
Yeah.
too much. The bureaucracy of the government, and this is true of any government, of any bureaucracy, it's just grown to the point where you need a bunch of career inside people to be able to navigate it, right? I mean, you think about it, a congressman probably does not do much in the way of legislation at the end of the day. Their staff does it all for them, right? They're all fundraising and doing all the wheeling and dealing they need to do. They can't actually govern.
Yes.
And and we need to simplify government, not just what's his name, what Musk is trying to do. We need to. I think I told you. I think we should get rid of the old laws. I think every new law that comes out should have an expiration date on it, so that we don't have to just build up this backlog of the tax code is however thick it is. I think it's this thick. We you just go simple.
Well, yeah, but why though? I mean, where's you because you realize that in Congress, the number one thing for anybody running for Congress, especially for president, is your ability to fundraise, your ability to bring money in, right? And so,
Well,
when
that's why like France with their strict rules, right? That the amount of airtime that a presidential candidate can get is limited by law. And they
yes,
have people who watch how much airtime they get on various news shows, and will they get fined? I think they get fined if
yes,
they go over that amount, and that includes if you're already president, and you have to do the job of being president. That's also airtime.
yeah,
So it's really interesting how that works. And then there's limits on the way that they can fundraise, and to me, that's where we need to get back to, because right now the organizations, the PACs and all, are just way too powerful for what they are.
yeah,
The
but
fact that you and I can give, I don't know, 2,000, 10,000, whatever, to a campaign is one thing. The fact that they can give hundreds of millions of dollars, that's a problem.
well, yeah, yeah. I mean, we've known this for 50 years, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, McCain was trying to fix that for years, and that to me was one of his big things, right? John McCain wanted to fix campaign finance.
but here's the
And
thing, though.
the problem is that's one of the most bipartisan against American viewpoints, because they want to protect themselves.
Of course.
So on both sides of the aisle, they don't want to, to fix
No,
campaign finance.
no, 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 no. I mean, this is not like a Democrat Republican thing. This is them together. I mean,
This is
they're
where, when you get an anarchist or a terrorist group that goes against the government, this is where the type of thing that would get them upset. It's like they're upset with all government,
yeah, they're
right?
upset with all government. Yes, exactly right, actually. But the ability, but I don't know how it's going to change, right? Because the people, if you have a lot of money, you have the ability to influence and you have a lot of power, right? And so lobbyists do everything. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but the lobbyists, they write all the bills. They do everything, actually.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, this is not your congressman sitting around. They're kind of dumb. They don't know what the hell to do.
Oh,
It's like,
even when they sponsor the bill. They don't write the bill.
yeah, exactly. And then big drug companies, they fund everything. I mean, nowhere else in the world do we have like direct consumer pushing of drugs, right?
Yeah, they advertise the name brand so that you can go ask your doctor for the name brand.
Yeah, exactly. And the commercials are hilarious because there'll be these happy people walking around and they're like laying this, oh, it'll cause death and it'll be this and you'll never live again and you'll have this and your leg will fall off and so happy, happy, happy. Ask your doctor.
Yep. Um, I was gonna change topics real quick.
Oh, good.
Greg, you mentioned the book Zealot,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? And that was a historical account of Jesus Christ's life,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So I didn't actually read the book, but I did have Notebook LM read it for me.
Why actually read it when you can have AI do the work for you?
And it was interesting because it puts a lot more political. I don't say political, but it felt like there was a lot more marketing going on by the different religious sects. Like,
During what, the time
yeah.
of Jesus?
So in the time of Jesus, that he was actually marketing himself in many ways. He was avoiding trying to. He was a son of man, but trying to avoid being labeled as other aspects. I don't know.
Hmm.
It was interesting to see a. I like historical discussions about religious background. Yeah, I find it very interesting. So I know I thought it was an interesting book. It actually made me think though of other of books that were like fiction that had a lot to do with religion. I don't know if you ever read the book Dune, the sci-fi book Dune.
I saw the movie.
So the movie.
Yeah, it's not as good. The book is I mean, this thing is 1970s version of it, and I've read this thing 30, 40 times. This, my opinion, is the best fiction book ever written. It happens to be science fiction, but so what? And it's um, Herbert wanted to think through. He was a scientist. He wanted to think through the birth of a religion,
Oh,
and so he has a messiah. And he used a lot of Islamic Arabic words, right? And jihad. I mean, I learned the word jihad from this book when I was in sixth grade, right? I mean, I all the things that are in the Hajj and all these things that they talk about. and it was really, I found interesting. So I thought he was like Muslim. He wasn't. He found it an interesting way to add what would happen if all the if the Earth today were to go off and expand into the world, into the universe, what would happen, right? Christians would go here, Chinese would go here, Spanish people would go there, and Muslims would go there. And so it was the idea is what would happen if something like a religion took over the universe, took over the known universe. So it was interesting, but no, I found that book to be an interesting book. I think it was a bit of a dry read when I did try to read some of the text. So did you actually read through it?
Well, I listened to it
Yeah,
on
okay.
audiobook, but yeah, yeah. It is. I mean, it's a lot of dates, a lot of names.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
you'll
found it.
go, yeah.
Let's see, where is it up here? Let me find it. Oh, did I tell you? Now I'm jumping up to a different area. Uh, Scott, did I told you about the interaction or not? Notebook LM. They have the ability to create a conversation about the topic that you upload into it.
Yeah, I've listened to it. That's scary good, actually.
They now have a beta version where you can talk to them and interact.
Yeah, I was reading that. I was showing that. Yeah.
So I took our six of our podcasts and I dumped them in there. I couldn't get the one with Jamar to load for some reason,
Yeah, I have
and
trouble uploading the audio sometimes to
and I
the
said okay, and it started talking about Scott and Chris and blah blah blah,
yeah.
and I started asking it questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it comes back and tells you, oh yeah, this is the way it is. I was going through that Courage to Be Disliked, the
Yeah.
book I told you back a while back. Oh gosh, that was really interesting too. The way it actually picked up enough of the philosophy of Alderian psychology that it was able to answer questions for me.
That's
I'm
fascinating. Yeah, that is amazing, actually.
and I did that American Nations as well. So I took the American Nations. I said, which of these nations would support
Oh,
Democrats? Which of these nations supported Republicans?
yeah.
And had it kind of walk through. I don't know. The whole thing is really impressive.
Yeah, it is kind of cool, actually.
Are
You
you
could
guys
actually, and
looking to do a couple, well, not a couple, but maybe like 20 podcasts and then have AI generated podcasts so you don't have to do them anymore? You could just have,
That'd be even better.
because I
then we
think
can listen, then
everything's,
we can listen to what we could have said.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. This is what we meant to say, actually. Yeah.
If you want to keep it audio only, I think you can do that now. If you wanted to have video avatars of you, I don't think
Yeah.
we're quite there that it's readily available for you to use, but you could get some audio generators to talk for you.
I've seen people use this
That'd be
particular Notebook LM to create conversations, and they just put up a picture on YouTube, and then they have the audio running in the background.
that's
One of the interesting ones I heard was where they got AI to talk about how AI could take over the world,
Hey,
and
I
so
gotta do a quick restroom break. I'm gonna be back in 1 minute.
so I was thinking the other day about just yesterday. I think I was thinking this. I attended a free Tony Robbins thing that he has going on.
Ooh.
So it was interesting. I mean, the guy's a machine when it comes to pumping out energy. But one of the things that we talk about is the hero's journey,
Mhm.
and we all know what the hero's journey is, right? So you get someone who we learn to like something about them, so we align with them. Bad things happen to them. They overcome the bad things and they come out stronger in the end, right? That's the hero's journey. And I realized the value in that is understanding that bad things happen and we can overcome them. That's why the hero's journey is great, because we can see ourselves in the hero, realize that when bad things happen, that is our chance or opportunity or challenge that we need to get through. And I realized that social media shortcuts the hero's journey. It shows us the end state. It shows us the goal without talking about the journey. So it's like if you read the end of a book, you wouldn't get the experience of what happened to get to the end of a book. And I think by having this what's fed to us with social media the perfect life, everything's great, I've got all this money, I can go on vacation wherever I want. People end up not seeing what it took to get there. And
Right.
so we need to bring back a way to make the hero's journey obvious to people. And I don't know how you do that without just getting rid of the social media, which doesn't make any sense. How do we get
Well, I
people?
mean, there are some, I guess you could call them influencers or just people on social media where they do document their journey every day.
Yeah, and I would say that those are good, and I think people like them, but it's much harder to go through a 5, 10, 15 minute, 20-minute, hour
Yeah,
story than it is to just see, oh, look how nice it is in Ibiza or Greece or wherever someone's vacationing, right?
right.
So, particularly if you're doom scrolling, because those are just short snippets, right? And very short
Hmm.
snippets of information. So sometimes you'll watch one of those shorts and you'll see someone actually, doing cuts, and they've developed it well, and you can see the story happen in a minute. But generally speaking, I don't think that's the way I see a lot of it. And particularly when you have things like, and there's a lot more video formatting than there used to be, but like the Instagram, the pictures, the Facebook pictures, and the like, and what you see is just one snapshot and not the things around that snapshot.
Yeah.
Scott, I was saying that I think social media has killed the hero's journey, and that's what's causing a lot of problems for people because they don't see the effort and the work and the challenges someone went through to get to the end.
Whoa, that's a big claim. Let me repeat back what you just said, actually. So you're saying that you believe that social media has killed the hero's journey.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I would say there's some outliers there, right? Like, for example, um, who's that Marine guy who, oh no, SEAL, who runs all the time? Goggins, David Goggins,
Goggins, yeah.
Yeah.
right? So, I
But,
mean, I
but
think a lot of people would argue he's already a hero and his journey's ended, but all his reels are just him continuing on a journey that he's never stopping, you know?
but the,
Um,
the pain and getting through the pain and the journey is who he is, right? As opposed to
Mhm.
someone who just says, "I'm here in beautiful blank, living the life, staying in a 7-star hotel, eating, caviar every day," and people don't see what it took for someone to get to that point.
Hmm. I don't know. I don't. Oh, hang on a second.
See,
Let me give me
it
a
used
sec.
to be when you saw something good. I mean, we would see a celebrity and we'd see, oh, they're famous, they're rich, or whatever, they're great. But it wasn't that we were inundated quite as much, right? Before, usually when the news would talk about someone, they give you a little bit of information, or whether it be a celebrity gossip show, they give you a little bit of information or background about the person. The problem with a snippet, a screenshot, a picture, is none of that even comes through. And we're just inundated with so much of it that we don't get the opportunity to see the investment that went into that outcome.
Oh, yeah. I don't know that we've ever really seen that.
Well, no, we always
Mhm.
gloss over it, right? But the
Yeah.
fact that social media can just feed us the end product, right? It's like I said, I was telling Greg, it's like getting the ending of a book, reading the last page of a book, and thinking you understand the book.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because that's the information. It's like everything is so spoon-fed to us. You know,
Well, I mean, what's the purpose of social media?
get attention.
Or
To make
why
the
are you
world a
using
better
it?
place.
Just to get
Well,
attention.
I think you can find those journeys if that's what you're looking for, if you're
Yeah.
intentionally looking for them. You can find them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
But
that
if you
that
go
that
on there and
requires
you're not looking for
intentions.
any,
It requires
huh?
you to be intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, Chris, because that's embedded into there's a book called Wired for Story, and I think humans are embedded for that story. I mean, we love the hero's journey, we love the rags to riches. I mean, we love that stuff.
Oh, I think we're wired for it. Correct. But I think the problem is this is short circuiting that so we don't see it as much, and
Oh,
therefore it's
yes, yes.
pushing it down to where we don't recognize that there is a hero's journey in all these pictures I see. Every picture I see took effort to create. Everything that I'm seeing took someone had to go work and get a high paying job so they could afford to do these things. Someone had to go create content. Someone had to go and put that picture together that they took, that beautiful photograph they took. That took effort to create just the photograph, let alone the conditions to be there. And none of that comes through. And it's always been an issue, like when you're looking at a magazine, oh, those are pretty pictures, and you don't think about that. But now we're just inundated with so much of it.
Yeah. Well, maybe this is the destruction of our society, right? Because Jordan
Yeah,
Peterson talks about the
it's the
concept
downfall of society is social media.
as when we get things get so easy for us, we get hedonistic, and then we actually lose the ability to actually do anything anymore, you know?
Yeah,
Now we
the
just
old
sit
saying,
around.
right? Hard times make good men, good make good times, good times make soft people make hard times, or whatever it is.
Yeah,
And
we're a product of our environment, basically.
what does someone today think of as a hard time versus someone 100 years ago?
If my internet goes out for an hour, I'm freaking out, you know.
TikTok. Oh yes, no, TikTok went down.
TikTok. That's a
Did you
hard
see those
time.
people that were selling their phones for thousands of dollars?
Mhm.
So when TikTok put up their sign saying, we've gone down or whatever, because the government's going to shut us down, a lot of people deleted the TikTok app off their phone.
Oh, interesting.
And then what happened was they came back up because Trump said he's going to give it a 90-day extension, all that kind of stuff. And then you couldn't download the app anymore because Amazon or Apple and an Android store all followed the law that said they couldn't support the app
Uh,
anymore. So people who had deleted the app no longer had it, even though technically it would still work if they had it. So people were selling their phones with the TikTok app on it at a premium price.
Wow.
well, we call those first world problems, you know. Yeah.
Our
You know,
first
back
world
to something
problem
you were
less
saying,
important.
Chris.
What was that?
Huh?
What did you
Back
say?
to what you were saying about those photos that you see that are so beautiful.
Hmm.
One of the things I love to do is take pictures of people taking pictures.
Ah,
So I remember at whenever someone would have a wedding and I would go to a wedding, you have the photographer, I would just take pictures of the photographer.
yeah.
And then when the photos come out and you see this beautiful wedding photo, I
Yeah.
would take the photo and then put it next to this is what he looked like when he was taking the photo.
Yeah.
And I love doing that.
Behind the scenes stuff.
Well, half the pictures I have of my wife are of her taking pictures of my daughter.
Oh, that is awesome.
Anyway, that was my social media comment.
Yeah, I think social media is bad in the general thing. Hang on, let me rephrase it. Consuming too much social media is bad. Just like eating too much sugar is bad. And it's like watching too much politics. I think you're really smart, Greg, just to stay away from Paul. I swore I was going to do that, but then I keep getting sucked in because it's just I can't stop it. You know, I'm an addict, I think.
No, it is what it is. It triggers some feeling or emotion in you,
Yeah.
and you get used to that. I mean, that's what doom scrolling does, right? It triggers the dopamine or whatever.
Yeah, and I gotta get over that. And I'm not sure how, but I remember in our early podcast, Chris, is that we talked about, consume less, create more, right? Was one of
Yep.
our kind of tenets.
I think creating is the biggest
Yeah.
part because it gets you into your head and out
Yeah.
of other people's heads.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of the essence of the podcast, right? Is hands-on logos. It's like, create stuff, but somehow use some think about what you're doing a little bit.
Yeah, I went through and did an exercise to figure out um, the content I want to create because I've
Uh-huh.
been recording stuff just to have a recording of it, but I don't want to put it all just and dump it all in one place. So I was thinking through, but I was thinking of I created a channel. I haven't put anything on it yet called Specialized Generalist,
Oh, there you go. Nice.
right? So because I think in many ways I am a specialized generalist.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I think that's where I think in the next 10 years, that's a really important skill, right? You've got to be a generalist because now you can use it's like because AI is smart enough to create the content, but it still is not perfect enough to decide what to create. So I think you need a human using those tools to create content.
Yeah, I think you can use AI to be like a lower level SME, subject matter expert,
Yeah, right.
to
Correct.
come up with a bunch of stuff. Then you need a real SME, a person who understands, who's good
Yeah.
at their job and understands to interpret and make sure that's okay.
Yeah.
Then you, as the kind of the puppet master of all of it, can take those different things, put them together, and make the final product out of it.
Yeah.
But you need to know enough to know when something's wrong.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
need to be enough to know everything, but you need to be to know when something's wrong. What is it that Neil deGrasse Tyson says? It's you need to be smart enough to realize that you don't know everything. Or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. That's the most dangerous spot is like you don't know that you don't know. That can kill you, you know. Hey,
Oh,
so
I was gonna say
sorry.
I saw I was watching YouTube as I always do, and a commercial came up for the iPhone death case.
Oh, really? iPhone death case.
This is a this is a case that will burn your phone if you die to hide all the things that are on it.
Oh, wow. That's kind of
And
crazy.
you wear a ring that when the heartbeat stops, it eliminates the phone. It doesn't destroy it, but it destroys everything on it.
Wow. That's crazy. So you can hide all your sins from the world, actually.
Yeah,
You gotta make
there's
sure to
probably things
charge
on there
that
you don't.
ring.
Well, yeah, make sure to charge exactly. You
Why
don't
not
need to. You don't take it off and take a shower. You come out, your iPhone's dead. Yeah.
why not
But
just stop sinning?
oh, come on, that's asking someone to change their behavior. We are fixing. We're not fixing source problems. We're fixing symptoms.
I see. Exactly.
The American way.
Yeah.
We
That's
don't go to the source. We just fix the symptom.
that's kind of crazy. Hey, so Gregory, I feel like we should probably start wrapping up here actually. Um,
Mhm.
but why don't you can you like give us some scientific stuff? Because you're a scientist. We've never had a scientist on the show
Oh
before.
yeah, because I'm a scientist, I know
Science it up
everything
a bit.
about anything in the realm of science I can address.
That is
So,
awesome,
um,
actually. So yeah, it could but I could I give you a direction though on this? Because something
mhm.
Chris and I have talked about. So I'm setting this premise up, and you can sort of break this up with a sledgehammer if you feel like it, which I would rather you. Yeah, I really want you to break this thought up. So in my mind, there's something called like science, which I consider just basically another religion, right? It's a way of thinking about something. And then there's the scientific method, which is an approach to actually get to the truth, whatever that means. Could you like talk about that
The scientific method
versus like
hmm,
science? Yeah,
versus science.
yeah.
Scientific method versus science. So the scientific method is it's a method, right? It's a methodology, it's a way to do something. Science, even the word science to me is feels like a, a general area, and I think it's a loaded word and it means
Uh-huh.
something different to everybody.
Yes, yes.
Science being a religion, I mean, I could see that. There are a lot of parallels to
Hmm.
it in the sense that well, so Jamar mentioned the difference between faith or emphasized the difference between like a personal faith and religion, organized religion, right? So there's a scientific community, there are scientific organizations, and they kind of have some level of control with what goes out there, for example, which papers get published and things like that.
And
But
they
there are a lot of people who
excommunicate you
do
if you
science
go
on their
against.
own. Mhm.
They excommunicate you if you go against them as well. The
Yeah,
science community.
yeah. And there's all kinds of politics involved in there and whatnot.
Well, one
Um,
thing occurred to me was if you look at all the old philosophers, if you look at Newton and stuff, and we consider them mathematicians and scientists,
mhm.
they were before there was the term scientist, they were philosophers.
Hmm.
And they thought. And so the scientific method, the idea, the framework by which you can figure things out, that exists irrelevant of scientist. Like a scientist is a person who believes that I think a scientist is a person who believes in science.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the person who does science is not the same thing as a scientist.
Huh?
I think there's a difference there because when you live in a world of science, then you're accepting a lot of the things like just like you would in a religion, right? But to actually go and do science, I'm not sure the word scientist is the appropriate word anymore.
I don't know. Do science. Do I do
What do you do?
science?
I do science.
I mean, we definitely use the scientific method, right? There's a hypothesis. You do tests to prove it's true or false. And of course, in industry, those have very specific definitions on, how, like if you're gauging efficacy, you have to define what efficacy is, and it has to be accepted by whatever regulatory body is
What
allowing
about
that product to go out. And
what about other things
but
like data science and library science and you know there's all these things that we label science. Are they really science? Or are they just analytical? Are they just organized?
yeah, I don't know how to think about that. Because we throw the word science in front of everything, or we throw a word before science, right?
Yeah.
Well, we think, oh, we're going to put some structure around this. Now we can call it a science.
Call it a science,
But it's not scientific method that you're using, which is the basis of science. So in essence, we've moved away from this idea that we're going to use scientific method to develop a body of knowledge, and that body of knowledge will be blank science.
Yeah. I mean, the way they're using that word, they're just kind of using it.
Yeah.
Oh, a pet peeve I used to have is when people say, I evolved or this evolved. And I'm like, that's not how evolution works. I know it's a metaphor. It's not, you're
You
not
prefer
being
them say it
literal, but
mutated? I mutated into this.
it's over generations, multiple generations of people in large populations. And I'm like, you're one person. What are you talking about? You didn't evolve. But then I saw Pokemon and I'm like, okay, I get it now. That's what they mean. They're referencing Pokemon, not evolution, because that's a totally different thing. But yes, I watched this. I think I was like 14 when we had just gotten cable. So I think I was either 16 or 17. And it was C-SPAN 2. So I was flipping through the channels and I saw C-SPAN 2. And there was this scientist who was talking to Congress and he was urging them to stop framing things as this is you're either a believer in religion or science.
Hmm.
And he was saying that I'm a scientist and I'm very religious. And I see no conflict of interest there. So we don't have to pick one or the other. And the way you guys are talking about different legislation, you're pitting those two against each other, and they don't need to be. And I thought, wow, C-SPAN 2 really is boring. Then I flipped it. But I
One,
still remember that. It kind of stays with me.
Hmm.
I've been trying
one
to
thought,
find that clip, but
yeah, I know how you're going to find that.
yeah.
Um, one thought that occurred to me, and I've been going over this in my mind, is the what, how, and why. And if you go back to Simon Sinek's Start with Why, he says, what do you do? Like he was using Apple as an example. I make computers. How do you do it? I make them very beautiful and easy to use and whatever. Why do you do it? Because we're different. We're artists. Or whatever the reason was, right? And it got me to think, a lot of times the reason why things fail is because those you don't go far enough into that, right? What do you do? And that you stop there. What do you do? I'm a scientist. What does that mean? How do you do it? Well, I use scientific method. Okay. Why do you do it? We don't know why you do it. You're driven, you're curious, whatever, right? But I think I started to think about it. Science is a how, and religion or belief is the why. And if you think about it from that aspect, science just explains how things work. It doesn't explain why things work. It explains how things work. Why does why does this happen, right? Why does water freeze at a certain temperature? Well, I can say how it happens when the molecules slow down, they change state, blah, blah, blah. That's the how. That's not really the why, because the why is purpose. What is the purpose for the water to change?
Mhm.
And I think if you make that distinction and get really clear on your what, why, and how, then you can put religion or God or whatever into your why and have how be the explanation of everything. And then the what are the facts that you're using to derive that. So the facts, the information, that's the what. The how, that's where your analysis and critical thinking and scientific method and all this stuff comes into play to understand how things work. And then the why is something deeper than that and is not explained by science.
Mhm. Oh yeah, no, that's exactly right. You got to have philosophy, religion, and science to get I think to get a complete view of the world.
I would say for a lot of, 1700s and whatever the philosophers in the old days, I would say that a lot of the philosophy and religion were often very tightly tied together.
Yes, yes,
And
absolutely.
when science took control, it kind of got pulled apart.
Yeah.
And I think what ended up happening was philosophy started to align more with science, even though it's not, it's just you're in your head. And philosophy should stay more in the realm of spiritual.
Yeah.
But see, I view they're all the same thing, actually.
I think you need all of that
Yeah, you need
to
all.
be a complete person, complete healthy
Yeah,
person.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
some level of spirituality, I think, because it explores questions that you don't have an answer for or things that can't be explained.
Yeah.
And just if you just don't think about those things like why are we here or why does anything exist, I feel like I have a suspicion that there's just this nagging feeling in your
Oh yeah.
in yourself,
Oh yeah.
and
I disagree. No, I
it's
disagree.
it's like repressing a curiosity that you're just going, no, I don't need to think about that.
Yeah, I
I,
100% agree with Chris.
and I 100%
This
disagree.
is beautiful. Then we got something to talk about then.
And
Okay.
the reason here, I think in a world where so much is defined by how you see things in your head, how you see things in your head, how you see things in your head, in that world, there are things that we're never going to be in agreement on. And to me, I have to live with the fact that there will be things we will always have disagreement on.
Oh, of course,
There,
yeah.
there are things that are going to be ambiguous. There are things that we're not going to, and that is life. Ambiguity is part of life.
Hmm.
And expecting everything to make sense, expecting everything to have an answer, expecting to be able to say, "Oh, I'm going to tie a bow around it. I'm done. Everything's hunky dory." I don't think that's the right way to look at the world. You need to look at the world with the fact that there are things you will never know. There are things you will never understand, and that is okay. And you need to learn to be okay with it. Now, whether those questions are why are we here, and you say I want an answer, and you figured out an answer, you figured out that that's God or whatever, or you say you know what I don't know, but and I'm not going to take the time, or I am going to take the time to think about that. That to me is the state of being a complete human, is to be able to accept the fact that the world is what it is, and your understanding of it is going to be a small part of that, and to be comfortable with that, to learn to be comfortable with that, because that's a limitation on you.
Well, okay, so I think what's the right way to say this actually?
Misstating it, misinterpreting it.
Yeah, you're totally misinterpreting it. You're just off in left field, actually. You didn't even address the question, actually. So, in my mind, what Greg said was that there's this innate curiosity inside humans as to like why we're here, how things work. I agree with you in the sense that, yeah, we'll never figure it out. But I'm saying yes to the fact that there's this innate curiosity inside of us. So, do you agree with that part?
I think people are curious.
Yeah,
What they're
curious.
curious about varies.
Yeah, but at the essence, though, it's like, you can go back through thousands of years, and people are always asking the question like, why am I here? What's my purpose? Why?
I don't think the average person asks all those questions. I think that's a rare strata of people who are self-aware enough to think about that. I think most people are obsessed with today, day to day, yeah, and they don't ask those questions.
Oh, that's what oh, see, that's interesting because I think I agree with Greg in the sense that I think everybody at some point will ask those questions. So you're
I
thinking
think
it's just
I
default.
think there are people who live on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube
Well,
scroll and never get
I
never get
mean,
into here.
even those people, I think they think about it. I don't think they think about it that long because they get distracted or they choose to be distracted
Yeah.
because, I mean,
Or
it's not
they're
easy
living
to think
hand to
about this
mouth
stuff.
and don't have any money to spend and to spend the time to be able to think that way, and so they end up, just to survive. They don't have the thought
Mhm.
takes thought takes energy and time away from other things, right? It does. And so if you're if you're sustenance living, you don't have time to think about these things. These things take reflection and a lot of things that I don't think everyone has the time. Now maybe when they're older, when they've established themselves and they're not living hand to mouth, they can do that.
Also, you don't think then, wow, this is very interesting. So you don't think, when you're out camping, even if you have no money, even if you're hungry, you sit up and you look at the stars, and even briefly, you're like, wow, how do I fit into this whole thing, right? Like, you don't think people think that way?
I think we as Westerners think that that's the way people think. I don't think that's real.
Oh, that's an interesting.
I think most of the
Hmm.
world lives moment to moment, trying to survive, and having the safety and the intelligence and the education to be able to go and think that way. That's why philosophers in the old days were always people who could write, people who had an education. Rarely do you find ones that were uneducated people who came up that way. It's rare to find that. So to me, the fact that what survived was this group, to me is indicative of the likelihood of people being able to do that was really on that structure.
Really, that's fascinating, actually. So, there's a verse in the Bible that talks about that because Jesus made a bold claim. Because unless you believe in me, then you're not going to be with me, right? People like some people say yes, people say no. But there's also another verse that talks about the fact that even without this known, it's innately known so that nobody has an excuse for not realizing there's a God. And so you'll probably disagree with that.
Yeah, if you're living in misery and you're in pain, when do you have the time? Why
Well,
would you and why would you want there to be God if you're living in misery and pain?
well,
Just
I
to hope
don't.
that there's an end?
Well, I'm not saying that you believe in God, but I don't know that this takes a lot of time. This could happen and you could just look up and devote 2 seconds to it and realize like, what is my place in all of this, right? I'm not saying you have this, drawn out like, years of research and study about this, but I mean, there's definitely some. I'm just making the assumption, and I'm making an assumption that's valid for you to bring that up. That I think everybody at some moment has a thought like, what's my place in this world, right? Why am I here? What am I supposed
And it might not be exactly that thought in those words,
to?
but
Yeah.
more the feeling that those words convey. It's
It's so
more of a
what comes out of that in your mind?
Well, I'm not saying anything. I'm just thinking at some point you're yeah, yeah, that's exactly right,
So
Greg.
so
Yeah,
if you grow up in a different culture
yeah,
where individuality, I mean, we're Western culture, and Western culture is really about the individual and growth and education and change and
yeah.
accomplishment. And there's a lot there. Other cultures may not have that, right? Imagine if you were a slave in a I don't know in 1500s you were a Chinese slave or an Arabian slave or something like that. Um, I don't know that those thoughts would necessarily come to you.
I mean, the thing is, we'll never really know, right? Because
It's like, what do you know? What is the world around you? What do you see? If you see people around you who seem to be smart and think about things and say things like that, it might occur to you to be the same way. But if everyone around you is just trudging around doing manual labor and there's no thinking involved, and remember, even the idea of process improvement would be something that your average slave would never come up with because they probably get thrashed for the idea of making changes and questioning authority. So to me, there's an openness to Western civilization that makes us think that we're going to be in our minds enough to do that. And I think when you're in survival mode, you're not in your mind very much.
okay, so let me ask a question then. Then is what does it mean to be a human? Like, what are the innate things that are built in that every single human feels or thinks about?
What is it? Glad, sad, mad, afraid, and glad, sad, mad, afraid, and angry. No, excited, surprised.
Those are the core elements, and everything else is logic and reasoned up from that, do you think? Or learned?
You remember the movie 2001?
Yeah.
The whole beginning scene with the apes and the monolith?
Hmm.
And at one point, one of the apes figures out how to use a bone as a weapon to kill
Yeah,
another ape.
right. Mhm.
It was like an aha moment, and from that point on, they couldn't unsee it.
Yeah.
I feel like if you were to go back to just like the base biochemistry of a human being, right? They would be like those apes. And at some point, they would because the brain is big enough, they would make a connection of this and this are together, right?
Yeah, they would
If this
discover.
happens, that happens. If this, right? I was thinking about this when it comes to like people who used to farm and grow things years ago. They didn't know why things happened, but they figured out how things happened.
Yeah, right.
Right?
How
If
to
I
use
put
it.
water on this, this will grow. If I put too much water on this, this will not grow. Right? So I think we have an innate ability to understand, to learn how. We see the what. All animals suffer the what. Some animals are able to do a little bit of the how and make life and improve their life by the how. And then no one is able to truly understand the why. We and I think that once you've mastered the how, then you've got the mental facilities to start to tackle the why. But I don't think you start to tackle the why until you've mastered the how.
Hmm, that's so interesting.
I mean, how many people go through their life not knowing, not having a purpose?
I would say nobody.
I'd say everybody. I'd say those who have a purpose, who took the effort to sit down and say, what is my purpose? Why? You go back to why do I want to do this? Why am I alive? Why do I act the way I do? Right? That's a level of self-reflection that comes with a certain amount of self-confidence, a certain amount of the ability to make fun of yourself. It comes with knowledge to understand that you're not the strongest, you're not the fastest, you're not the whatever, right? And being able to put, and yet you are an individual, right? Those are things I'm not sure that the average person, even though they may understand that they are an individual, they are different from the person next to them, necessarily believes in a way that makes it useful to them.
Well, can we go back to cats for a secend since we talked
Sure.
about that earlier? So, do you believe a cat thinks that same way? Or do you think a cat thinks about why? Yeah, speaking of cats, right here. Here's a cat right here, actually, just hopped
But
up.
I think what about cats though?
Do you think that cats think in terms of, do you think they're just purely reactionary, or do you think they think in terms of bigger things? Or they think I'm hungry, I'm sad, I'm angry, just the basic emotions, actually.
Cats are tactical, not strategic. So if they want to hunt something, they are good at hunting. They'll sit there and they'll wait. They'll figure out where things are, right? But that's a tactical approach. That's not a strategic approach. I think when you start getting into the why, you start getting into strategic thinking, and I think strategic thinking is tough. Which is why I think one of the purposes religion served was to take the hard ideas and give people some kind of a strategic plan to think through that they were able to comprehend. And quite often they didn't comprehend. They just followed whatever was said, right? A lot of people didn't question whatever the church said. They just did what they were told. But they were given a strategic explanation for something that they didn't have the capability to understand.
I think yeah. Yeah, that most of the time I think that's true. Huh.
I
I
mean,
guess,
most strategy is hard.
but do we have a built-in, I think, do we have a built-in, do we have something built into us as human beings that have a curiosity about why and how and what's our purpose here? Because if you look at every civilization, somebody's trying to address those, right?
You're talking about the very smallest amount of people. So if we're talking about people in general, I don't think the average person is your curious, let's go figure out, let's go stick my finger in the electrical plug kind of person.
No, I agree with you on that, actually.
Right? So you're talking about you're talking about, I don't want to say it's the cream of the crop, but you're talking about the end of the bell curve when it comes to humanity. And I don't think you can use the ends of the bell curve to define humanity. Or sorry, humans. Humanity, yes, you can use the entire bell curve to define humanity. But to define a human, you go right down the middle.
Hmm.
Right? And so when I think about it that way, we're very tactical. Men more so than women, right? We always want to figure out how to fix something, how to solve something. It's always tactical, tactical. Let me handle this problem, that problem, and it has to do with hunting and solutioning and all that kind of stuff, right? Women, women are they're still tactical, but I think they're looking at it at a different viewpoint. Strategy is something different. It's where you take a step back and you don't care about how you do it. You care about why.
Leading
I don't
strategy,
care about how I'm going to make $1 million. I care about why I want to make $1 million.
leading strategy represents the why, tactics are the how.
Yes. And so when you want to say, you know, what is the strategy of science? Why is the world the way it is? Why did evolution occur the way it does? Why did the Big Bang happen? Why do black holes, suck in everything around them? Why? I don't know why. I know that they do. I know how they work. I understand, gravity gets condensed to the point where it sucks everything in. Okay, that's all the how. That's all the tactical thinking. But what about the strategic thinking? Why? And that's where when people have enough of the how that they begin to see, wow, there's a lot here. That's when they ask the question why. And that's when you start opening yourself up to the idea of God. So we know more today than we knew in the past. So that level of that threshold where you really start to really understand, I think, is a lot higher than it was in the past because the body of knowledge is just much, much bigger. So before, your priests were the ones who were educated. They knew much, much more than the average person. That's not the way it is today. So now you have people who aren't priests. You have scientists. You have writers, philosophers, all who build a huge body of knowledge, and they see the patterns in the universe. They see the frameworks in the universe. These are systems of how the universe works, and the systems are just what science describes. And you see enough of that, and you go, "Huh? Why are the systems working this way? Why are we wired this way? Why does that happen?" And when you start asking that question, then you start to try to find Einstein's grand unified field theory or whatever it is that'll explain it all. And that's when the idea of God comes up again. In the past, it was to explain what I can't understand. Now it's to explain how things fit together. Right? God in the past explained what I couldn't understand. God today explains how things fit together.
Hmm. I don't have anything to say, which is very unusual actually for me.
Greg?
I don't think so. Maybe the term spirituality is better, but I don't think it's just a question answering a question of why. Um, I think it's also just a way to explain things that you can't describe. And so an answer to the question of why is a very, I guess, intellectual pursuit, something you think about, but also to describe feelings that you have, feelings that you can't describe or don't make sense to you, or even experiences, I guess, that you have that don't make sense to you, or just the maybe you want to think that there's something other than a physical reality. It doesn't make any logical sense to think that, but uh sometimes you just think there might be something other than the material world, if that makes sense.
But that's not a why, right? The idea of something other than the material world, I can make it into a scientific discussion. You know, we talk about alternate dimensions and blah 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 and all that kind of stuff. So I guess the question is, to me, and going back to what you said right earlier, is like you think everyone asks why at some point. Why am I here? Why did this or whatever, right? And by my other earlier comment, I would say in the old days when you didn't know much, you asked why for things that today we would all understand, right? We would explain with a how today. Why does it rain? Well, what ends up happening, and now you're explaining how rain works. You're not explaining why it rains, right? And I think that's a distinction that I'm having a hard time
Hmm.
internalizing. Is when we in science when we say why, we're actually asking how does it work.
Yeah, no, that makes sense actually.
But when in life, when we're asking why, we tend to go back to the purpose of existence, the reason for this, the feeling, the whatever it is, right? Why do I want to make X amount of money? Not how am I going to make it, not what am I going to do, but why? I want $10 million. Why? To have $10 million, or to have what goes with the $10 million, or what it represents, or what power it gives you, right? When you start asking those questions, you go into something deeper. So I think that when you get into more of a universal why, when you're trying to explain things at a across your piece, I've got this piece of information, I got this piece of information, I see how this system works, I see how I understand physics, I understand science, I understand mathematics, I understand Spanish, I understand Greek. All right, why do these things exist? Right, and now there's nothing to tie them together in the sense that there's a through line, but now you're trying to figure out how all those pieces fit together. They're part of societies. Maybe society is the first answer. Well, why? Because society formed. And well, why did society form? You come up with all these different levels, but I think ultimately those levels lead you to come up with spiritual answers, because at some point you can't just tie them together in the framework of what you're able to comprehend easily.
Mhm.
Hmm. I don't think most people who are spiritual or religious did all those whys to get to
They did their whys
their
based upon their
beliefs.
level of understanding. The more you know, the deeper your whys go, I guess. I mean, if you're a sustenance farmer in 1,000 years ago, and you know you know that when you plant your crops here after the floods, you end up with
Yeah.
things growing. You know, you know that you should keep your poop away from other stuff because it'll cause people to get sick. Right? There are things you have no idea how it works. You know,
I think
but
you can also get into spirituality not from a logical
Oh yes,
uh
right.
because I mean just thinking about how most people who are um well, so the question, why are you spiritual or why are you religious, right? Everybody has a different reason. Some people have like an experience, like a weird metaphysical experience. But other people, it's just, oh, well, yeah, I mean, my parents went to church, so I went to church, and yeah, I do it. And then others, they'll be like, oh, well, I was never really that into it, and then I just like studied it because it sounded interesting. Like they were taking a, cultural anthropology class or something. And then I learned about a bunch of different religions, and then I looked into one of them and I saw what their teachings were, and I just kind of thought, yeah, maybe. And then I started seeing the world through that lens. And then it's more like they got they learned about it and then started to see how, yeah, I could see that this does make sense. And maybe that's now what I believe because of that. So there's just different reasons why people might
So
start to become spiritual.
to me, if you look at that person who studied it and saw something they liked and then saw how it fit with the world, I'm going to ask you as the external person, why did that connect with them?
I would think that they felt something. It felt right to them somehow.
I think the search for feeling for why is feeling,
Hmm.
right? Your
Mhm.
curiosity is a feeling.
Hmm.
It's a desire,
Mhm.
right? So ultimately, our biochemistry allows us to somehow create feelings.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, pain is a sensation, but being, hurt is not necessarily the same thing. So we can create the emotions without the physical aspects, but there's something biochemically that's going on along with our brains. So I would argue that in essence, your the why is that search for the feeling that explains things to you.
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
At whatever level you're at,
Yeah.
right?
Some
I you
people.
know, I mean, I was trying to think when you were talking. I was thinking like, wow, what does a dog think of its master, right? Because they produce food, they take care of me, they take me to the doctor, they play with me. There's all these things they do. They have magical abilities. They can turn on the TV screen. You know, there's all these things that wouldn't fit into the mind, the understanding. They see what it is, right? A dog sees what. They don't understand how necessarily. They figure out a few hows over the course of life, but in generally it's a what. Do you think they have a spirituality where I don't think they believe in God necessarily. I don't think that mentality's there for that. But do they somehow look at their master as kind of a God figure? Because
Honestly, I don't
that's a very limited knowledge base for
I,
them to work off of, right?
I don't know what a dog would think. And
But it
I
just occurs
don't
to me like your limits on your mind are what control what you can think about. And one of the limits on your mind is experience and understanding that experience. And as humans, we have a lot more of that than others. But I think there's a threshold you have to get to before people start really thinking those questions.
Well, maybe we're just
wonder if
drug
there's
addicts. Because I listen to Joe Rogan. He talks about doing ayahuasca or some of these other powerful kind of
uh
drugs. And I know people do that one time and they come back and they're like, I had no idea. Now I just see how everything connects together and it completely changed me.
Who's that smartest guy in the world?
Oh, what's his name? Chris? Yeah, something.
Hmm.
He gets all into metaphysical stuff.
Yeah. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's the way God made us, right? Or evolution made us or whatever.
Doesn't he say he can prove the existence of God or something like that
Yeah.
as well? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he talks about it, the relationship. Yeah.
Well, if he proves the existence of God, then there's no more faith because faith requires that it cannot be proven. Isn't that right?
So does
Then it's
proving the
then it's
existence
just
of
fact,
God
I guess.
does proving the existence of God kill God?
Oh my gosh. You guys are killing me.
No, I mean
I
I mean
mean,
it
it
kills
depends
faith.
on
You say it would kill faith because then your belief is actually in a proof. Then you could argue that it's science though, and then it's another religion.
Well,
My
so
faith in science is what makes me believe in God.
we also
so I
assume that
guess
our definition of God is the same.
yeah, right. That's like we probably everybody defines God a little bit differently, actually, I'm sure. Wow. Well, so this is what I'm thinking right now. I think I got a headache. My head's kind of pounding, feeling sorry for myself. And I'm thinking this might be a great time to wrap this podcast up. That's what I'm thinking.
I think one thing I'd like to do though is to, if anyone is bothering to listen to us, is if any of these of what we said actually triggered a thought, comment on it and let us know.
Oh, please
I
comment.
think,
I would love to.
did we miss something? Did we go down a wrong path? Did we touch on something that we should have touched on more, or skip something? Whatever it is, I would really like to get more input.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be awesome.
I enjoy having Greg here. I kind of wish we could just do this all day, but obviously 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours already.
Exactly.
If anybody wants to call me out on the things I made up, go for it.
Yeah. That's
Yeah. I don't know.
The facts I made up.
They're not. Well, they're your truth.
My truths.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's always the
By
always the-
definition,
no, that's my truth. Yeah, exactly.
yes.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Well, so this is awesome. This is literally my mind's at a point where I don't know what else to say. I'm like more confused now than when we started. Normally we get clarity on podcasts, but this is opening up a can of worms.
Well, we'll work on that framework and see if we can help ourselves get to a point where we can get comfortable with this.
Yeah, yeah. And it just might come out to be this, whereas my fear is going right now is that we'll never understand, no matter what frameworks. It's just
And I think we all need to be comfortable with that. I think we need to be comfortable with the fact that we don't have the ability to understand today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where your question of faith comes into play. What do you fill that with?
Yeah.
Are you okay with it, or do you say, okay, now then I have to have faith and believe in something else?
I think probably the second option. I have to believe in something else.
I'm okay with nihilism. I'm okay, not nihilism, but with emptiness, nothing.
Yeah, I'm not okay with that. At my core being, I'm like, there's got to be a reason for everything. There's not, in my mind, my just general assumptions are there's no such thing as random chance. Basically, random just means that we're not smart enough to be able to predict what the
No.
outcome is.
It's like, if you take out the God or religion or any kind of force, why did the Big Bang happen then? Assuming we still agree.
Well, now they're saying it didn't even happen. They're
Yeah, that's that.
wrong.
But if the supposition is the Big Bang happened and there's no God,
yeah.
what triggered the Big Bang? Why?
Yeah, no, right. Yeah, exactly. So
Have to-
I guess it comes up, you got to have faith, even if you're the best scientist, cosmologist, you still have to have faith, right?
I think there's a faith in science that
Yeah.
isn't explored.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, all right.
Okay. Awesome. Great,
Hey.
great seeing you. I haven't seen you in a couple of years, so this is fantastic to see you today.
So you gonna stop recording?
Yeah.
I'm going to stop recording right now.